Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports. When
When it comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
This one's special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
And this is a real program. It's not fake. This is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football, this is a really good place to be.
On anybody, it's the Aggies.
Monday morning edition of TexAgs Live here on December 16th, 2024. Here inside the Rollo Insurance. It is David Hart. Packs off. That's embarrassing, OB.
Yeah.
Nuno. I'm on now. There we go.
And how many times do you always burst through that door?
I yell at David.
Yelling
How
about.
embarrassing. Anyways, what I was saying was, this is TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner Schulers. We're here inside the Rollo Insurance Studio. This is the Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Maroon never looked so good with Maroon U. Apparently, David Nuno is here because I forgot to turn on the pack. So you can just call me David for the day. But he'll be back tomorrow, and he'll take you out through the remainder of the week. But OB here with me on a Monday morning. It was a busy weekend for Aggie sports. Good weekend. We had a big Aggie basketball win on it was a neutral site game. Huge neutral site game, but basically a road game in Indianapolis. A&M defeated number 11 Purdue. A couple big transfer portal additions. We'll get into that as well. The Heisman Trophy winner, Travis Hunter, was selected, and we will go over that. At 9 o'clock, we'll talk to Tom Hart, SEC Network play-by-play man. Ryan Brauninger will come in at 9:35 just to kind of give us some transfer portal updates, recap the weekend. It was a wild weekend in the transfer portal for the Aggies with a lot of visitors and whatnot. Luke Evangelist will pop in for a segment, talk a little bit about basketball. 10 o'clock, we'll call in to Buzz Williams, talk to him about the big win over Purdue. And Billy Liucci, of course, will join us in the 10 o'clock hour as well. So, OB, I guess let's start again with that big win over number 11 Purdue up in Indianapolis.
Yeah, it was as big a non-conference win as I can remember, especially being on the road. Yes, it was a road game. I know it wasn't in West Lafayette, but that's only about an hour and a half maybe to Indianapolis. So it was definitely a road environment. And to go out and beat a team as good as Purdue, a team that played for the national championship last year, 3 starters from that team still playing, and ranked number 11, and to go in there and really be in control most of the game. I think at one time Purdue had like a 9-0 run in the late first half, early second half, and took the lead momentarily. But I think A&M led that game for about 32 of the 40 minutes.
Yeah,
and was up by 10. Was it 10 with about less than 5 minutes to go? It's 4:44. Wade Taylor hit a 3. So, I think that capped a 10-0 run. It started with a C.J. Wilcher 3. And they had a 10-point lead and had to protect it. They, protected at the foul line. And I think it was Zurich Phelps had a big bucket in there and played good defense. So, what was so impressive about that win, besides the fact that everything, but add to it that Purdue played well.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it's one of those games where, you look at they won, but, Purdue just didn't play. Purdue played well, but they weren't as athletic as A&M. I don't think they didn't look as fast as A&M. I know they didn't shoot as well as they typically do. I think A&M had a lot to do with that.
Yep. It was the Aggies' 5th straight win.
5. They took the 5th.
Yeah, 5 in a row. 3 Aggies.
And I drank a 5th. I was so excited about it. I didn't really, but I thought it sounded fun.
Why not? Sounds like a good time. 3 Aggies had 15 or more points. Zurich Phelps, 16, went 4 for 9 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3. 6 for 7 from the free throw line. Wade had 15 points.
Farrell
Payne, I was about to say, had his coming out party.
That's what we were been looking for.
Yep.
What a game that guy had. What a difference maker he was.
Yep. 16 points, 6 from 6 from the field, 4 for 7 from the free throw line. I believe he had 9 rebounds to go along with that as well.
Yeah,
so
tremendous.
Really big performance. I'm going to ask Buzz this a little bit later on, but I feel like we haven't really talked too much about Wade Taylor so far this year because the transfer additions, Farrell Payne, Zurich Phelps, those guys have been stepping up and kind of helping take a little bit off of Wade's play. In past seasons, I feel like at times it's been like, okay, our offense is let's let Wade create something.
Well, I think a lot of that's by design, and I think Wade is a co-architect to that.
Mm-hmm.
I think Wade understands that. Buzz talks about all the time that he has such a high basketball IQ, and he's shown it over and over. And I think that he was, from the outset, looking to distribute more and do all the things to get other guys going because he realized the potential of this team. And if they have to rely too heavily on him, that they'll probably be similar to last year's results. But by getting a more balanced team, what they could be now, when you have to have it, you want the ball in Wade's hands. He had the 2 back-to-back key buckets in that win over Texas Tech when it was so tight. And then in this game, again, he comes up with 15. What was it? Was it 15 points?
Yep.
And that 3 gave him that 10-point lead that they were able to protect. I got to tell you, he came up. I'm not sure exactly what the injury was. He came out hobbled and off the floor in that last a minute, and my stress level went up.
Yeah,
because I know that if he's out there, he's going to have the ball in his hands, and they're going to have to foul him. And Wade at the free throw line is a layup.
Yeah.
But, Manny Obaseki made some big free throws down the stretch.
4 for 5 from the free throw line in the final minute to seal it.
And then Solomon Washington hit a big free throw to give you that 4-point advantage and took Purdue out of it. So, it's you win a game like that, you're almost always going to look at it and you're going to see a bunch of people have key games. So you talked about the Wade with 15 and Farrell with 16 and Zurich with 16, but maybe the other guys didn't score as much, but you see guys with 5, a couple of guys with 5, a guy with 6, and Hayden Hefner, 6 points, 2 big. I think he had 2 big threes. So it's the quote total team effort, but it really was.
Yep. So this is a Luke Evangelist tweet. The Aggies jump up 6 spots in the net after taking down Purdue. 26th is A&M's highest net ranking in non-conference play under Buzz Williams. So just thoughts on that non-conference resume so far with 2 cupcakes left over.
I know you're going to have Buzz on later, but I would, if I was on with him, I might ask him something along these lines. You still have 2 more games to go in non-conference, but at this point, you obviously go out trying and hoping to win every game. But when you take back and you step back at it and you look at where you've played and who you've played and whatnot, could this non-conference stretch, could it have gone any better? I mean, really, if obviously you say, hey, well, you could have scored down the stretch against Central Florida, or you could have done it against Oregon and won those games. But you also got some breaks against Rutgers and Creighton, and you made your breaks, but so it can go both ways. You had to rally from those games. But I guarantee you, if you said, hey, 11 games through after you've played Oregon and Creighton and Texas Tech and Wake Forest and Ohio State and Purdue, and you're going to be 9-2, I think everybody was, we'll take it right now. Yeah. So I can't imagine that there's any feeling that this non-conference stretch that they scheduled that was going to be so challenging could have gone any better.
Yeah. 100%. This is Coffee Talk, by the way, presented by TexAgs Coffee. Beat the hell out of morning by going to texags.com/coffee. Let's turn the page here, OB, to two big transfer portal additions. Like I said earlier, we're going to have Bronny and Billy Liucci on to break down both these additions later on. But we'll go in chronological order here. A&M added former Georgia cornerback Julian Humphrey via the transfer portal. I believe that came out Saturday morning. No, that was Sunday morning. Excuse me. It came out Sunday, really early Sunday morning. He committed, and big addition to the secondary. Humphrey didn't see the field much in his freshman year at Georgia. Only played 3 games, but last year played 9. Had 11 total tackles. Starter for the Bulldogs on the
10
defense.
Games, right?
Yep, 10 games. This past season, 10 total tackles and 4 pass deflections. So just big addition to the DB room.
Anytime you get a chance to get better, especially in the secondary, I thought their secondary needs to be upgraded, and to get a player that was a starter at Georgia. And I heard that he lost his starting job for whatever reason. Fine, he started for 10 games at Georgia, and that may be a national championship team. And to be able to add a guy like that, he's from Texas.
Yep.
I'm excited about that. You can't have too many corners, because if you have too many corners, then one of them can play safety, right? Mm-hmm. I would think that's a massive get. Hopefully he'll make an impact similar to what Will Lee did.
Yeah, 100%. His career stats: 21 total tackles, 18 solo, 5 pass breakups. He's played 427 snaps for Georgia. That's the third most of any Georgia cornerback this past season. PFF has him with a 69 coverage grade. That's 4th among Georgia DBs. And on 25 targets, he allowed 14 receptions, 238 yards, 2 touchdowns. One of those touchdowns being that big 75-yarder in the Georgia-Alabama game. He was covering Ryan Williams in that one. So that was just a wacky game.
Ryan kind of split 2 guys on that. Look, I would imagine, you said 20 games. I imagine probably half of them, if not more, might have been on special teams. Mm-hmm. His first year. I'm not saying he didn't play but probably most of his work was. I guess what I'm getting at is this was his first year as a starter.
Yep.
And he started at Georgia, and I've always maintained it's not a dramatic opinion. I mean, it's just an obvious statement that first year players typically are better when they're second year starters, i.e. Edgerrin Cooper.
Yep.
And by the way, did you see what he did last
He had a big game yesterday.
I know I'm getting sidetracked, but who's going to have a really tough chore this week is Shireen Williams, when she's going to have to do the Aggies. And who's she going to? Is she going to put Mike Evans number 1, or is she going to put Edge Cooper number 1?
Yeah, you're a good point.
So anyway, he was a first-year starter, was a productive guy at Georgia. He's going to be here. I'm excited about Julian Humphrey.
And then the big one everyone was excited for.
Because you need receivers.
Yep, need receivers, and this is a big one. A&M added former Texas Tech wide receiver Micah Hudson yesterday evening. He battled through some nagging injuries last year, played in 5 games for the Red Raiders, totaled 123 yards on 8 catches, averaged 15.4 yards a reception. Just 5-star recruit last season.
5-star guy that, when he's healthy, can do some unworldly things at receiver, and I think, from what I understand, brings some speed. So when you add and forgive me because I'm not going to know all the names, but when you add the 5-star guy from Salt Lake or from Utah,
Jerome
Miles, and you add him and Micah Hudson, and you have there's another kid, like a 4-star kid in the recruiting class,
Kelshawn Johnson.
Yeah. So you take that and you look at Ashton Bethel Roman and what little we saw of him, but you like, and I know he was highly regarded. And then Noah Thomas still being around, and some of the guys that, like a guy like
Bussy playing a little receiver as well.
Bussy and Ernest. Who knows what they'll do with Bussy now? But the Curio, is it Ernest Campbell?
Ernest Campbell, yeah.
That, so you can always find a place for speed. So I think a position of concern. I don't want to call it a position of strength yet because you got to actually do it on the field before it's but let's just say the concern has been eased substantially.
It's starting to look kind of like the defensive backfield or the DB room last year when Elko first got here and the transfers he added in started to go from a concern to like, okay, now we got some good depth and some quality pieces. Still probably going to add a few more, or at least you want to add a few more pieces to that wide receiver room. We'll see where they stand a little bit later on with some of the targets. But like you said, 5-star wide receiver coming out of high school. Was second string with Texas Tech in the limited time he saw, but he was a 2024 preseason freshman All-American this past season. So big things expected out of him. Let's go around the room now and talk to the people helping us out here today. OB, behind the glass, we'll start with Cade Bickham filling in my usual role. Cade, good morning. How are you, brother?
Good morning, y'all. I'm doing pretty good. I'm pretty excited about these two transfers. I like Humphrey. Like OB said, he started for Georgia for 10 games this year. That's pretty good,
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's they're in the playoffs. And then Micah Hudson, obviously, that's the position in need, and that's the first big name off the board. So I'm hoping that Elko and the fellas are looking at some other big names. That's a pretty deep transfer portal class for receivers. So
100%. We got Josh, Kay, Colby, Luke, and Matthew helping us back out there today, helping us through the winter break. As you know, kind of gets a little lighter with the schools out and less interns around to help out. So thanks, y'all, for helping us out there.
We got Matthew and Luke back there. We just need a John and a Mark.
Yeah.
We have the whole gospel.
Well, we got a Callie here. I don't know what that's about. She's over at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Aggies gather. Angry Aggies can gather at the Angry Elephant.
I don't know what
that would
we have
probably
to be angry
fit
about
me
right
and
now,
Richards. We'd be the Angry Aggies there. But yeah, you're right. There's not much to be angry about. Callie Garner, fresh off a trip to New York City. How'd that go, Callie?
It was great. It's cold, a lot colder than it is down here in Texas. And I was expecting it to be like 50 or something yesterday when I got back, and it was like 75. So
that's typically what happens when you go.
Yeah,
north,
it's closer to the North Pole.
Colder.
Well, yeah,
so
but
colder.
We left on Thursday, and it was pretty chilly in Texas, and now it's not anymore.
That's true. Definitely not.
That's true. Because I wore a warm shirt today. I didn't need to.
Yeah. Callie, I know you were paying close attention to Jamie Morrison and the Aggie volleyball team and their Sweet 16 matches. Didn't go their way. But
I watched that.
Yeah, I did too.
What a exciting game.
Yeah.
Golly, I wish they would have been able to close out, but man, I was impressed with them.
Absolutely. Callie, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so the Texas A&M volleyball team finished their 2024 season as they fell to the number 2 seed at Wisconsin in a 5-set absolute thriller match on Friday in the Sweet 16. It came down to the final 2 points, and the Aggies lost the last set 15-3. The year 21-8, which is a set .724 win percentage, which is .172 higher than their win percentage in 2023. So they are just steadily getting much better. Logan Lednicki was outstanding once again. She had a match high 23 kills, and Afena Kosapala also led the team with 10 blocks. They had plenty of exciting moments this season, from going 9-1 in the first 10 games of their season and defeating the number 7 ranked Texas Longhorns in Austin, which resulted in their first conference loss at home in 79 games, and then finishing the season 2 points shy of an Elite 8 appearance. They just had an outstanding season, and they were a really, really exciting volleyball team to watch, and I'm excited to see what they do in the coming years.
I'm going to have to admit something, and y'all probably laugh at me for not. Of course, why not? They've been laughing at me all morning for falling down in a chair that was broke.
I wasn't going to bring that on air.
I don't care. I know it's going to come sooner or later, so I'll do damage control. But anyway, I have to admit, I don't cover volleyball. I didn't know that the fifth set only went to 15. Mm-hmm. I'm at a popular establishment watching the game that's, I'm going to say walk-ons. I was there, and I start yelling at the TV, like, what? And I only go to 15. But you know what? I don't know enough about volleyball to be mad at the officials, right? But there was this one, it might have been in the 4th game, and if the ball wasn't out on Wisconsin, it had to be the squirreliest play ever. They just barely got it over, and I think the A&M girl looked, okay, it's going to go out, and I'm watching it, I'm saying, that's out. But I guess if any part of the volleyball touches the line, so I'm screaming, "You cheaters!" And people are looking at me like, "Who is this guy?"
Well,
I got into it.
Yeah, it's hard not to when it is exciting as it was. I was watching on my phone and I was yelling at my phone and I was getting really excited for them. And you can just tell their heart for their team and their coach as well when they're playing.
Yeah, most exciting part about all this, OB and Callie, is, well, again, Coach Morrison's goal was to get them back into the Sweet 16. He did that in year 2. And if you look at this roster, junior, not any seniors on there. So a lot of returning talent, especially with Lednicki coming back. Afina can come back. So that's going to be really, really fun to watch. So got to hit a break here on the other side. We'll get into the Heisman Trophy. Travis Hunter takes it home. We'll break that down and much, much more. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to TexAgs Live right here on The Zone.
What's up, TexAgs? This commercial break is brought to you by my good friends over at Aggieland Chevrolet, the official automotive sponsor of TexAgs.com and me, Billy Liucci. Greg Gunn is the proud owner of Aggieland Chevrolet and invites you to visit the dealership to experience true Aggie hospitality. From their friendly staff to the experienced service team, Aggieland Chevrolet is TexAgs approved. Check out the dealership off of Highway 6 in Bryan or go to AggielandChevrolet.com and tell them Billy Liucci sent you by.
Welcome back in TexAgs Live, presented by David Garner Jewelers. We're here inside the Rollo Insurance Studio. It is the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Maroon U is your ultimate stop for brand name apparel, gifts, and accessories for the entire family. OB, normally you and David, you start over there
at that cool zone.
Yeah, holistic planning cool zone.
I kind of wish we were. I need some coolness in here.
Yeah,
it's a little bit warm.
Yeah,
if we go to the cool zone, you know what you can do if you go to holistic planning?
You can invest.
Yeah, you know what else?
You can do taxes.
They'll take care of your tax. You know what else?
State. I don't want to think
your
about
state.
That.
Yeah.
What else can they do?
Well, going back to investments, they can broker your investment deal so you can buy into sports franchises. So if you want to be an owner.
So you're the new part owner of the Dallas Cowboys. First move. What are we doing?
The first move?
First move. Yep. You're calling shots.
If I get to call the shot, okay. The first move I'm doing is I'm firing
McCarthy. Okay.
Yeah. First move.
Cooper Rush staying your quarterback?
No.
I saw the tweets.
Yeah, he actually had to end up having a good game. But if you can't hand off the ball, but the second thing I would probably do is start looking to trade Dak.
Yeah. I like that.
You can't spend. I don't want to. Never wanted to lose Dak, but you can't pay a guy that's won one playoff game like make him the highest paid player in the league. You can't now. You're not going to be able to build around him because you're going to be hamstrung by the salary cap.
Yeah, my favorite pro sports team, the Astros, just traded away Kyle Tucker.
I saw that 3-time All-Star, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Did they get something really good for him?
I guess TBD. We'll see.
Okay.
It was a smart move, but anyways. Holistic planning, by the way, the NFL recently became the last Big Four North American sport league to allow private equity firms to acquire ownership stakes in its teams. For years, professional sports investing was reserved for the ultra-wealthy, not anymore. If you are interested in learning more about professional sports investing and to determine if you may be appropriate for you, visit Holistic Planning. Visit Holistic Planning. They are your ticket. Go to investinprosports.com. today. OB, let's get into
if I was the owner of the Cowboys, by the way, I would have drafted in the last couple of years. I would have drafted Edgerrin Cooper and Devon A-Chain.
Yeah.
I would have.
Turning out to be some pretty good pro players so far.
I could have saved the franchise.
All right, OB. Travis Hunter wins the Heisman Trophy this past Saturday. He beat out Ashton Jeanty by 214 points. The voting total was 2,231 for Travis, 2,017 votes for Jeanty, which was the smallest margin of victory in the Heisman voting since 2009.
Yeah, in my mind, that just goes to show how much Ashton really should have won. Mm-hmm. And the way I'm thinking about that is Ashton Jeanty did not have the ESPN publicity machine behind him like Travis Hunter did. I'm not saying Travis Hunter didn't have a great year. He did. Is he deserving? Yes. I just thought Ashton Jeanty was more deserving. And there's too many voters, in my opinion, that are going to do whatever the ESPN hype machine, they're influenced too much by it. Mm-hmm. There are 3 teams in the nation this year that had 7 running plays of 50 yards or more. 3. Navy, and I could look them up, but I know Navy's one of them. They got one against Army. So there's only 3 that have that. Ashton Jeanty had 12 on his own. Those 3 are tied for second for the most 50-yard runs. Mm-hmm. Boise State had 13, and 12 of them were from Ashton Jeanty. What's more outstanding than that? He had like 6, 7, 8 plays of 70 yards or more. Mm-hmm. And then there are those that say, well, yeah, but the caliber of competition, the Big 12? The Big 12. Do you think that Ashton Jeanty's schedule was that much different than playing in the Big 12? Mm-hmm. You know, with great teams like Oklahoma State, by the way, Ashton Jeanty played Washington State, which absolutely boat raced Texas Tech. Mm-hmm. So it really wasn't that different. I think, ESPN was pushing the whole thing. Oh, yeah, but Travis Hunter plays both offense and defense. Yeah, and he had a nice season. He wasn't the nation's leader in receiving. He had 3 games in receiving where he had like 55 yards or less. Mm-hmm. That's a quarter of his games. He was a non-factor. So And just because he played both ways, I don't think. I mean, that he's a great player. He could be the first player taken in the draft. It wouldn't bother. I wish the Cowboys could draft him. But the most outstanding player in college football this year was Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah, Jeanty was first in rushing yards, first in rushing touchdowns, first in yards per carry, first in yards after contact, first in forced missed tackles. Travis Hunter, sixth in receiving yards, fifth in receptions, second in receiving TDs, tied for 17th in interceptions. And if this matters to you, which it's become kind of a stat now, total snaps 1,356, which was the most of any college player.
Great player. Our resident genius, Matthew Dawson, who always comes up with these numbers that nobody else
He was
would.
heartbroken, by the way.
But he pointed out that there are people that are trying to dismiss Ashton Jeanty by saying, oh, yeah, but if you took away those 70-yard runs, he's only average, or, he has like X amount of runs that.
Why would you take them away?
He says, yeah, if you take them away, he only averaged 5 yards a carry. 5 yards a carry is great.
Yeah.
What are you talking about here? So in my mind, Ashton Jeanty should have won. But as typical, ESPN picks who they want to win at some point, and then they push everything. I'd look at the crawler, and it would say, before everybody knew who was going to win it, before the votes weren't in, and it'd say, like, Travis Hunter is Heisman leading Travis Hunter is this. I'm like, even when they announced the finalists, they put Colorado's Travis Hunter named the finalist.
Yep.
And and they say other finalists, be objective. Be unbiased.
I understand. I agree with you. My vote would have gone to Jeanty if I had one. But again, that's not to take anything away from Travis Hunter.
I put him second.
Yeah,
I put him second on my vote on my ballot, and I put Dylan Gabriel third.
Mm-hmm. That'll work. We'll hit a break here on the other side. We'll talk about a few of the bowl games. Might be some interest there this week, and then the first round of the college football playoffs is this weekend. So we'll take a really early look at those first round games. So come on back. You're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers.
Everyone, David Nuno here in a moment right now for Snaps Clothing. They are the makers of the only official licensed Texas A&M Pearl Snap shirts. I'm wearing it right now. This is part of their Tailgater collection. It's built for game day. My friend Edgar over there is doing great work. You've got to check out the clothing. It's the Pearl Snaps. It's the cool look. It's kind of hip, but also Western. You'll love it, and they have great stuff there. They'll keep you comfortable as you're repping your Aggie gear, and it's the place to go to get it. Whether you're watching the game from home or tailgating before watching the stands, these shirts have you covered. Head to snapsclothing.com. That is snapsclothing.com to gear up for the season.
We're back in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It's TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner Jewelers. It's the Go Hour presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Nick Savage filling in for David Nuno. He'll be back tomorrow. Olin Buchanan in here with me as always. Callie Garner's over at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. OB, big week of college football, big weekend of college football. We were kind of just talking about it off air. Let's start with some of the bowl games this week. Not too many really to be into, but one of note, especially in the SEC, the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl, which is Friday. Tulane takes on Florida. What do you think a win does for Florida, just in terms for momentum for them? Because if we remember back when A&M beat them earlier this year, it was looking doom and gloom in Gainesville, but they turned it into a 75 year and could be
they did well,
trending in the right direction.
I thought they were going to have their third straight losing season, but no. I don't know, because even I guess if they win, you look at it and you think, man, they've really got things going the right way, and they went, as bad as it was supposed to be, and to not only get into a bowl game but win one. But here's the thing, and it may give you even more, if you're a Florida fan, even more confidence for next season, because who's going to play for Florida? Every time I look up, I see somebody from Florida in the transfer portal. Good players, like a defensive lineman, an edge player, and then some other. Who's going to play? So if they're able to piece together a team that can go out there and beat Tulane, provided Tulane has everybody playing, then you can say, okay, maybe we're going to be okay next year. But I don't know that you can hold it against them if you're a Florida fan if they lose, because it seems to me, and maybe I'm seeing the same guy too many times, but it seems to me they got 4 or 5 key guys that are in the portal. I mean, they're opting out or for whatever.
Just from a quick count, if this number's off, sorry, but I count 15 players in the portal for them. But not
all of them are going to be key players.
Correct, yeah, but some of note, some that A&M is, has interested,
like
has hosted on some visits here. So, I mean, yeah, you're right, that definitely some key players going out the door. But
so if they could get a win, if I was a Florida fan, I'd be thinking, okay, maybe it's going to be okay. We're losing those guys, but look, we were able to put together a team and still go out and win against a pretty decent Tulane team. Assuming that the Tulane team out there is going to be representative of the Tulane team you saw.
Yeah. It's crazy that that's how we got to talk about bowl games, but that's just where we are. I'm going to run down a few games. You can just tell me if you care or not.
Okay.
Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl, Memphis versus West Virginia.
I don't care. But,
don't care.
I don't, but
that's tomorrow, by the way.
Go Memphis, I guess.
Okay. Wednesday, the Boca Raton Bowl, Western Kentucky, James Madison.
I used to live not far from Western Kentucky. Hilltoppers, but I don't really care.
Okay. Cal, UNLV, Art of Sport LA Bowl.
The wife is a graduate of the University of California at Berkeley. She'll be going to go roll on you Bears, but I actually, she's always mad at me. Might as well get her mad at me. I'm going to root for UNLV.
Okay.
Because you know why? Remember their quarterback left their team after 4 games?
What even happened?
I'd have to look up that name. But who does that? Was being lied to. Hey, we're going to pay you this much money.
Kelly.
I get it.
Yeah.
But beyond that.
See if he's gone anywhere, because I hadn't thought about that till just now.
So I would hope UNLV overcame. You dealt with that, and you still made it to their conference championship game.
Yeah. Got beat by Boise.
Beat by Boise, and to go out and beat a ACC team. I can't believe I'm calling Cal an ACC team. But to go out and beat a Power 4 team after your quarterback pulled that stunt. If he pulled a stunt, if he everything. But so I could root for UNLV for that.
Georgia Southern, Sam Houston.
Sam Bearcats.
Yeah, my mom graduated from there.
Is that right?
Yeah, we'll root for Sam.
So did a couple of good friends of mine, Brett Zerneman, Larry Bowen.
There you go.
Mark Rosner. There's 3 of them.
Friday, we already talked about Florida Tulane, Ohio, Jacksonville State.
Couldn't care less.
Yep. And now that brings us to the first playoff game, the lone playoff game on Friday night, 7 o'clock on ABC. Indiana, the Hoosiers travel to South Bend to face Notre Dame.
I'm going to be rooting for the Hoosiers. I never root for Notre Dame. And I think they can win it. Now, I'm saying that without having to put any money on it or betting. I don't even know the line, but I think they can win it.
Notre Dame is a 7.5
point. Yeah, I'd probably take the points.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably take the points in Indiana. It's not like Notre Dame has been steamrolling all of its opponents.
Yeah.
Except I'm going to be watching basketball that night. I believe aren't the Aggies playing
HCU? I believe so. Yeah.
So I'll be watching basketball, but I'll probably be keeping up with it.
Yeah. See, I'm the opposite of you. I think Notre Dame covers there. Just I feel like Indiana's a lot like Penn State.
I'm going to tell you something.
Okay.
If you ever want to make a lot of money,
bet against
whatever I say.
Okay. Fair enough. But I mean, look at the Indiana schedule. They have one test.
Well,
Ohio
look at
State,
Notre Dame.
They lost. Well, they came to Kyle Field and beat A&M.
Okay.
Okay.
A&M kind of gave them that game. But
they beat a 15th ranked Louisville at home. They beat a 24th ranked Navy. They beat a 19th ranked Army.
But were those teams really the 24th and 19th and 15th best teams in the country? Were they really?
Probably not. No. Probably not. Of course, they lost to Northern Illinois the week after they beat A&M. Everyone remembers that. But
they needed some pick sixes to get by, some late pick sixes to get a pick six or something like that to get by USC.
Yeah, USC.
There's some other close games on there, if I'm not mistaken.
They did beat Louisville by a touchdown. Let's see here. Beat Georgia Tech 31-13. Blew out Florida State, but they stayed. Yeah. Beat Virginia 35-14. Blew out Army. So I'd say the closest games were USC and that Louisville game, but an A&M game, yeah. But I just don't believe in Indiana.
I don't believe them I don't think they're one of the necessarily 12 best football teams in the country. Mm-hmm. But I mean, aside from Ohio State, hasn't Indiana just blown out everybody?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. They've handled their business on the rest of the schedule. But again, it's just. I feel like if we're gonna pick apart Notre Dame's wins and opponents, picking apart Indiana's.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Well, that's the thing. I don't have much. I'm not a baller like you. Come on. I've only been in the business for a few years.
7.5. You're giving me 7.5.
Yeah.
Make it easy on yourself.
Hey, we'll hit a break here. On the other side, we'll break down the rest of the college football playoff games and all that good stuff. So. Don't go anywhere. One more segment with OB here in the Go Hour. You're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner Jewelers. Back here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Garner Jewelers. We're here inside the Rollo Insurance Studio. Last segment of the Go Hour.
Yeah, you're pretty
with
good
OB.
at this.
You think?
Yeah, I think so.
It took. I mean,
calling all those rudder games and Navasota and all that's really paying off. I guess.
I hope so. I credit you and OB and David and Louis Bellina. Believe it or not, a lot of guys have mentored me.
Okay.
Andrew Monaco.
Well, I've never mentored you.
Well,
I don't know why you.
I've
credit
watched
me.
you and listened to you every day of my life for the past 4 years at this point. Back when I was at the Zone, being a board op, so I've learned a thing or two. Just try to imitate greatness.
Learn what not to do.
Yeah, well, maybe a little bit of that as well. But so let's get into our next playoff game. SMU Penn State. We kind of talked about it. The winner of this one plays 3-seeded Boise State.
I would pick Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be surprised if SMU wins.
Yeah,
I really wouldn't. But playing at Happy Valley, it's going to be cold. They're probably a more talented team. I'm not sure that they're a significantly better team. But I would pick Penn State. But I wouldn't be surprised if SMU goes out there and wins.
I'm there with you. I'm not SMU.
Early game.
At 11 o'clock. Penn State's an 8.5-point favorite. I would pick Penn State as well to beat SMU just because I feel like that's a tall task going up there for them. But I would not be surprised if SMU went ahead.
I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for saying this because I know Aggies hate everybody, but I am going to root for SMU.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
That's all right. That's not out of line. Okay. Next game up, Clemson. I know who you're rooting for in this one. Clemson plays Texas in Austin. Winner of this one goes on to play the 4-seeded Arizona State Sun Devils.
I prefer the Clemson shade of orange.
Yeah.
I think orange and purple is a good color scheme.
Yeah.
I also like Cade Klubnik, an Austin kid coming home to try to beat the hometown team.
Yep.
That's an interesting story. I think Texas is going to win.
I do too. They are 10.5-point favorites. That's a 3:00 kickoff on TNT and Max, HBO Max.
Okay.
So two games that were sold off to TNT to broadcast in the first round of the playoffs. So
I think I've got HBO Max.
I gotta have TNT at least somewhere.
Yeah, got it
somewhere. I don't know. Last game.
Why is Callie Garner laughing at me for saying I think I have HBO Max?
I'm with you. I don't know what
laughing.
streaming platforms I have. It's all my wife. She takes care of all that stuff. But last game, Tennessee, Ohio State. Probably
She's still
the
laughing
best.
at me for falling in the chair.
Just ignore.
The last one, Tennessee,
Ohio State.
I'm taking Tennessee. Tennessee runs the football well. Ohio State seems to have some problems running the football.
Mm-hmm.
I think Tennessee they don't throw great, but they throw well enough. And I don't know Ohio State to get 2 or 3 holding penalties in the secondary. And I think Tennessee has a good defense. And quite frankly, that Ohio State offense is kind of hit and miss.
Yeah. Ohio State 7-point favorite over the Volunteers.
I will take those 7 points.
Yeah, I would too. My pick's Tennessee. I mean, Ohio State's already lost once in the Horseshoe or whatever they call their stadium, Ohio Stadium or whatever.
That's what they call the Horseshoe and
Horseshoe.
Ohio Stadium.
Yeah, same deal.
I've been there, by the way, and it's a pretty majestic stadium.
Yeah, I bet it's pretty cool. But these keep falling out of my ears, so I'm giving up for now.
I think you need smaller ears.
I guess so. I would be right there with you. But OB, thank you for sitting in with me for this hour. You'll have your normal counterpart back in here tomorrow to chop it up.
Me and next year Nuno.
The Go Hour returns tomorrow. So 9:00 hour coming up. We'll talk to Tom Hart off the top. Have Kay Naegeli in here for Around Aggieland at 9:20. Bronny will join me for a segment, kind of just recap the weekend and all the transfer portal come-ins and goings on. And then Luke Evangelist will come sit in here for a segment and talk a little bit of Aggie basketball with me. So don't go anywhere. Keep it tuned right here to TexAgs Live, presented by David Garner Jewelers.
Luke.
Welcome back into TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Garner's Jewelers. We're here inside the Rollo Insurance Studio, and we're about to go out to the Boss Firearms Hotline. Boss Firearms, your local experts. They buy used guns, ammo, and accessories. Go to Boss Firearms. Earning money like a boss. Today, we go out to the hotline to talk to a friend of the program, SEC Network and ESPN play-by-play man, Tom Hart. Mr. Hart, good to talk to you. Haven't gotten a chance to talk to you in a while. How are you, sir?
I know. Good morning. Where you been hiding?
In the back, just doing my normal job. But whenever Nuno takes off, if it's not Bronny, it's me jumping into the fold. So glad I'm getting a chance to talk to you today. And it was a fun weekend. You were in what game did you have this weekend?
First of all, I just have a suggestion for the show.
Okay.
I've been in the back, right? I don't know if many viewers have seen the back. We need a live camera in the back. Like we need everybody in the back to be more a part of the show. I mean, the Minions wouldn't be the Minions if it was just Groot.
Very true, yeah. So we do have a camera for the fishbowl. We call it the fishbowl back there. Or Nuno's, Nino's, whatever you prefer. But yeah, every now and then we flash the fishbowl in the back. So, but for sure, I like the idea.
I like Nuno's, Nino's. I think that's really good.
I didn't come up with it. So I think one of our former employees, Jamie, came up with it. So give credit to her. But anyways, let's talk a little bit of Aggie basketball to start here. I know you were calling another game, but I'm sure you kept an eye on what was going on in Indianapolis. A&M wins big over the number 11 team in the country. It was a neutral site game, but basically a road game, right? Not too far away from Purdue's campus. So just how big is that win for Buzz Williams in that non-conference resume for the Aggies?
Well, I didn't answer your first question, Nick. I apologize. I had Creighton at Alabama Saturday night.
That's a good one.
Another good win for the league. So I didn't get a chance to watch the A&M Purdue game, but I just think holistically, A&M is in a similar spot to a lot of teams in this league right now. The league has done such an amazing job stacking wins, quality wins at that, but mainly just stacking wins. The worst record in the league right now is South Carolina at 7-3. Most teams have basically bye games between now and the calendar year. Florida's got a Kentucky's got an Ohio State team at the Garden this weekend. It's been terrible and got blown out by Auburn. Oklahoma's got Michigan coming up, but everybody else, and I guess South Carolina's got Clemson. So that could be a key win for South Carolina. Anyway, the reason I bring this up is everybody's going to go into conference play with anywhere between, like either an 8-4 record, 9-4, or 12-0. If you're like Tennessee and Florida, Kentucky's probably going to be 12-1. Mm-hmm. And what that allows everybody to do is then just kind of play 500 ball in the league. You could play sub 500 ball in the league and make the tournament. The SEC is going to have at least 11 teams. As of now, probably 12 teams. And for a 16-team league to get 12 teams in the tournament, that is unbelievable. Yeah. And if the parity continues throughout league play, if the league champ is say 13-5, and you got a bunch of people stacked up in the middle, I mean, there's a chance you get more than 12. Because I don't think there's a terrible team in this league. Mm-hmm. I think there's going to be some real battles. But so what did I see from A&M this weekend? Guess what? They got more offensive rebounds. And they got offensive rebounds, up missed shots when the game was on the line. Like Purdue's trying to get back in this game. There's a minute to play. Solomon Washington tracks down a rebound from like 40 feet away. That is such a weapon. That is such a weapon for this team. And I said it last week. They're going to get offensive rebounds because that effort is ingrained in them. When they don't turn the ball over on top of offensive rebounds, then they're allowed to have poor shooting nights or average shooting nights because they can still pile up the possessions. The problems occur if you're not having a great shooting night is if you turn the ball over. And that can happen against great opponents. But that was a huge win for A&M. It's a huge win for the league to continue not only to stack up the W's, but good quality wins against good opponents.
Absolutely. Talking to Tom Hart here on the Boss Firearms Hotline. Tom, you can answer this more generally, but the leading scorers were Phelps and Payne, right? And that's been a couple games this year where Wade Taylor hasn't been the leading scorer for the Aggies, and I feel like in some years past, the Aggie offense kind of boiled down to, okay, here's the ball, Wade, make something happen. So just for this A&M team in general, how big is it to have guys around Wade Taylor that can make things happen for the Aggie offense?
Well, let me ask you this question, because obviously I didn't watch the game start to finish. How did you view Wade's game overall against Purdue?
Well,
was a bad game?
No. He played a Wade Taylor game, had 15 points, 6 for 15 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, 5 assists, 3 rebounds. So just, it's a Wade Taylor game, right? That's what the Aggies expect from him. But I'm just saying, like I said, Phelps, 16 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds. Real coming out party was Farrell Payne, the Minnesota transfer, had 16 points, 9 rebounds off the bench. So that's a huge help to Wade, right?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I think the only thing I would have rather seen, I just finally pulled up the box score, is the ball is in his hands a lot. 7 of his 15 shots were from behind the arc. There's nothing wrong with that. But you need to get to the free throw line a few times, and didn't make a single trip to the free throw line. That is about putting it on the floor. It's about, getting run up the 3-point line. And I just look at this box score and I see incredible depth, and I think that's something I saw this weekend in the SEC this year. And people ask, going back big picture, people ask, why is the SEC so good? Like, this is a leap. This isn't just a step forward. This is a leap forward. If they set a new NCAA tournament record with 12 teams and to have the dominance, I think 4 of the top 5 are in the league and half the top 10 comes from the SEC. The rosters are just better. They're better and deeper than any other league in the country. Creighton coaches were amazed at Alabama's talent. And this is a Creighton team that just beat number 1 Kansas a week ago. And they said, listen, they could run out 2 different starting 5s that would have the same record. They could still put together the same kind of resume. And I see the same from A&M. I mean, I think that the talent that they're bringing off the bench and the depth that they're allowed to play with lessens this pressure on Wade Taylor to be the go-to guy. And when I stress it's okay, it's late in the clock. Not only do we want him to have the ball in his hands, we need him to. He's the only one that can get off a shot. I don't see that being the case. I mean, when you can bring Obaseki off the bench and you've got Phelps and all of the other pieces that they have with Anderson Garcia, and man, that is just a loaded roster that allows you to play at another level. And that, quite frankly, you're going to need in league play, especially calendar turns in January. Guys start getting a little banged up. People less than 100%. And you've got to go against Auburn or Tennessee. Pick your number 1 opponent, Kentucky, which has incredible depth. And I think that's going to be a challenge for a lot of teams in this league.
I think you kind of just previewed what your answer is going to be to this next question, but who do you think the best team in the SEC is right now, or at least going into league play? Who are some of your front runners there?
Auburn, for sure. I mean, Auburn's resume is better than anybody's resume to this point. Tennessee, their depth is incredible. 2 of their best players were on the bench at the end of the game against Illinois. They've still found a way to win. Justin Gainey was great in the second half, doing what he needed to do from a ball handling perspective. And that is a tough place to play and get a win when you go into Assembly Hall in Champaign. I think Auburn and Tennessee have separated themselves within this league as being better than the others. That doesn't mean that any other team could win the league. I mean, Alabama preseason picked to win with the preseason player of the year, Mark Sears, and they just added a guy who had been injured, who was last year's AAC player of the year. So it's nothing against Alabama. I just think to this point, Tennessee and Auburn have played much better. The challenge will be, I think you'll hear this throughout the course of the season, is, how are you a team that protects against peaking too early? And I don't think coaches really worry about that during the season. They just want to play their best and be their most efficient as often as possible. So it's a good problem to have. But that's, Auburn is playing as well as it can possibly play right now. Janai Broome had 21 and 20. They State, which has a decent front line, and they just dismantled them. That's the high level to try and sustain through an entire season.
And just to talk to my audience for a second, A&M gets Auburn, Tennessee, and Alabama all at Reed Arena. So they do play Tom's 3 top teams in the SEC all here in College Station. So that's good news. They never have to play them on the road. Tom, let's turn the page to a little bit of college football now. First weekend or first round games are this weekend. Just, I guess, early thoughts. Which games are you most excited for? Me personally, I would probably say Tennessee, Ohio State. That's probably the popular answer. But, can SMU go up to Happy Valley and upset Penn State? Does Indiana have a chance at South Bend? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think the SMU Penn State game is the one that has the greatest chance to go sideways.
Really? Okay.
I think Jennings is amazing. I am a firm believer in his talent at quarterback. But I kind of feel like going on the road to Penn State, playing in front of 105,000, whatever that number is going to be, that is going to be a real challenge. This is going to sound so basic. I'm rooting for Mother Nature this weekend. Like, I want to see snow on the Golden Dome Friday night. I would love to see snow at Penn State. I mean, there is just something about that in the postseason, especially, that makes football stand out from any other sport. And the biggest selling point to this playoff and expanding is getting games that matter on college campuses, getting these games with, a trophy waiting at the end, a national championship on campuses where, fans can, I don't want to say average fans, because a get-in price at Notre Dame is going to be $1,000. At Penn State, I think it's closer to, $120. So that's more manageable. But the people who know where their seats are, who come every game, getting them a chance to go in and see these and not having to travel to some, random NFL dome to watch these, I think is huge. I agree with you. I think Tennessee, Ohio State is the one that really jumps out. And there's a reason that's primetime Saturday night and they put it there. Not the least of which is the last rumor I heard is that Tennessee, because it's Ohio State ticket snafu, Tennessee fans immediately gobbled up like 20,000 tickets.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's awesome.
It's supposed to be 3,500 allotted to the visiting team, and then whatever you buy off the secondary market, go for it. But that's nearly a quarter of the stadium that they're going to have in there with the 20 plus a 3,500 that they get. So that'll be a sight to see. I also think, and this may sound trite, but Tennessee is used to these challenges. They play on the road in the SEC. They won't have to deal with the same factors that SMU is going to have to deal with. Going into that stadium, playing in a road environment with 100,000 people cheering against you. It's nothing that Tennessee hasn't been through before. And on top of that, Tennessee played some really stressful games this year, games where there was a lot on the line, especially in regard. Like, I keep thinking back to the Oklahoma game. Like, Josh Heupel got fired by Oklahoma. His team knew how much that game meant to him. There was a lot of angst going into that game. And I think a lot of stress, right? Because they were favorites in the game. They should have beaten Oklahoma. They did. There was a sense of relief. I feel like Tennessee's already been through the stressful part of their season, and they're just playing with house money right now. And if they go up there and Yamaliava can sling it around a little bit, we know Tennessee can run the ball, and we know they have an elite defense and get after the quarterback. Like, those are 2 pretty good weapons to have on your tool belt when you go into hostile territory.
Clemson and Texas. Do the Tigers have a chance to go into Austin and upset the Longhorns? Their Longhorns are 10.5-point favorites in that one. So I guess Vegas seems to think the Longhorns will handle Clemson. And I see why. They're the last team into the playoffs, so that makes sense. But how do you see that one shaking out?
I've been a believer in Texas in terms of who they are and all of their pieces and all of their talent and how the program was built, all of that. But I just haven't seen their offense hit on a rate that is, you know, that would look like a national champion contender. And so if you can't move the ball, if you can't be efficient, and certainly if you're going to turn the ball over. I mean, they turned it over against Mississippi State, I think twice in the first half, and they let Mississippi State hang around in that game, and they didn't put points on the board. First of all, that is a really big number, 11.5 points against a power conference champion with an offense that does not put up a ton of points. Like that is, I'm not a betting man, but if I were, I'd look at that and go, wow, how many points is Texas going to have to score to cover that number?
Yeah.
And I think that allows Clemson to hang around this game. And there's something to be said for programs as a whole and coaches specifically who've coached in and been in big games. You know, you're facing Dabo Swinney and Clemson. You're not facing a new kid on the block. I mean, sure, they wouldn't have been there, and they had a disappointing season had they not won a tiebreaker and gotten into their title game and pulled off a last-second win. It's still Clemson. And I think what Dabo has developed there over the years has changed how we think of what that program is and whether or not you would invest them in a big game.
Absolutely. Last thing for you here, last couple things, then we'll get you out of here, Tom. Heisman Trophy, did the voters get it right? Travis Hunter wins. A lot of debate between Ashton Jeanty and Hunter. I believe it was the smallest margin of victory since 2009 for the Heisman Trophy. Our Heisman voter here, Olin Buchanan, he voted for Ashton Jeanty to win it. I can see both sides of it. I would have given my vote to Jeanty, but again, no problem with Travis winning it whatsoever. So just your thoughts on that. Did the voters get it right and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I have a vote, and I put Jeanty first. It was a really tough decision. I mean, it was dialing into the stats, trying to break down, you know, every little part of their games. And any other year, either one of them would have won it running away, probably.
Yeah.
I think Hunter is by far a deserving winner, and I was this close to voting for him. I think what he did is something we haven't seen since the era of leather helmets, playing so many snaps in each game, playing on both sides of the ball, doing it in an elite fashion. And I think he's going to be a superstar at the next level. I really do. The only reason that the thing kind of pushed me towards Jeanty at the end, and once again, not that Hunter isn't 100% deserving. I just look at the historical season that he's having and the fact that he could end up breaking Barry Sanders' record, and he proved against Oregon that he could do it against elite competition. So anytime somebody says, well, it's group of 5 competition that he faced, I would also say, yeah, and it's with due respect, it's group of 5 teammates that he has, right? He's playing with a group of 5 quarterback. He's playing with a group of 5 offensive line. Like all of that is taken into consideration when you try to break down, like, okay, could this guy have done it at the next level? And everybody tried to get him to transfer, and he stuck with Boise and put together a historic season. But yes, to answer your question, I think Travis Hunter's absolutely deserving of that. And maybe it wouldn't have been so close for Hunter's case if he didn't have Shedeur Sanders in there as well, because I'm sure he garnered a handful of votes from that region that maybe would have gone straight to Hunter.
Yeah. Last question here for you, Tom. Of course, it's just like the national championship game. Right 5 minutes after it ends, there's the boom, 2025 national championship favorites. So, of course, the 2025 Heisman favorites come out, and I just want to get your thoughts on some of the names on there. Lenora Sellers, I can definitely see that one, or him winding up in New York a year from now. Nico Iamaleava, you mentioned him earlier, especially if he is, kind of builds his profile with the win this Saturday and going further. DJ Lagway's on the list. Arch Manning's on the list. So just your thoughts on some of the names and maybe a guy or two you might have your eye on for the 2025 Heisman.
No, I think that's a great jumping off point. My guess is there's somebody out there that is going to put together a magical season that we haven't seen or weren't aware of.
Yep.
I'm thinking of some of the guys who received votes, but weren't finalists this year. Like the Penn State tight end, I thought was a really intriguing candidate. And if that team were undefeated, would he be getting a lot more attention? I know they're a playoff team. They had a couple of more, just one more win during the regular season. So I think you have to kind of look off the board for that wild card, like who was somebody that is unique enough and talented enough. And I think with Hunter winning, I think it's going to open up the eyes to, more defensive players being in the mix, straight defensive players being in the mix. The fact that Ndamukong Suh, which I think that was the previous tightest Heisman race, at least among the top five, the fact that that guy finished fifth when he probably should have won the whole thing, opens our eyes to defensive players can be the best player in college football. But yeah, I can't. I think I like the Iamaleava pick because Josh Heupel's quarterbacks get better every year. It's not an overly complicated system, but the reps that you build with your wide receivers allow you then to hit a takeoff point. That's what we saw from Hendon Hooker in his second year. And so while it will be his third year, he didn't play last year, right? So, or barely played in the bowl game. I think that guy's about to hit the trampoline and jump off from a statistical standpoint.
Absolutely. Tom, thank you so much for making time for us this morning, as always, and hope you have a great weekend. Good call on any games you got this week, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, keep up the good work. Good to see you.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. That's Tom Hart there on the Boss Firearms Hotline. We'll hit a break here. On the other side, we'll go around Aggieland with Kay Naegeli. All that and more on TexAgs Live, presented by David Garner Jewelers.
can't hear music.
Oh, that's right. You can't. Do you know what this is? Huh? That's Jonas Brothers? Okay, I trust you. Callie Gardner informs me that's
Waffle House
Jonas Brothers. So welcome back in. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner Jewelers. We're here inside the Rollo Insurance Studio, and Kay Naegeli is over at the Holistic Planning Cool Zone as we are about to get into Around Aggieland. That's presented by Normandy State Bank. Normandy State Bank, rock solid banking. The website, normandystatebank.com. Kay Naegeli, noted Jonas Brothers fan, not as much as Jamie Murray.
Yeah. What song was it?
Waffle House?
Waffle House?
I think that is on the playlist.
Not too familiar with it. Jamie Murray would know something about that. Also, I was laughing at her because she was talking to you without her mic in front of her. But you were like lollygagging over there.
Typical Callie behavior.
Yeah,
so
I was laughing about it.
Take us around Aggieland.
All right, let's go. So starting off with football, added 2 more additions through the transfer portal. That is Texas Tech wide receiver Hudson and Georgia DB Julian Humphrey. That is now bringing that total to 4, and I'm sure Mike Elko and company are not done yet. So stay tuned for all our updates on our site and through Billy and Bronny. They have been getting you great coverage through the transfer portal stuff. It's been kind of crazy so far, but hopefully it'll ramp up. Men's basketball, Buzz Williams and co. added another signature win to their resume on Saturday as they took down number 11 Purdue. That one was in Indianapolis. That was a huge win for the program in front of a huge Purdue crowd, favored crowd. I know Quentin Jackson was up there. He plays in Indies, and he had a little post-game speech. That was awesome to see. But with just 2 non-conference games left, the Aggies are now 9-2 overall, and that is 3 wins over ranked opponents. Heck of a resume loading. They will host Houston Christian on Friday at 1 p.m. That's an early tip at Reedy Arena, so make sure you get out for that for some holiday hoops. On that same front, women's basketball, the Maroon and White are 5-5 with just 2 non-conference games remaining. The next being tonight. That is Texas Southern at 7 p.m. Make sure to head out for that one. And then reminder, SEC play begins on January 2nd, right around the corner in the new year with Tennessee. On the volleyball front, I know we've all heard about it. I got to talk about Jamie Morrison's program because he has just done a phenomenal job in year 2. Wisconsin is and Nebraska, they are some of the best volleyball programs in the country, and he had them playing toe-to-toe with Wisconsin, taking them to 5 sets, lost that one 3-2, falling just short of an Elite 8 appearance. In total, through 5 sets, there was a point differential of just 3. That is just how close it was. Logan Lednicki was insane down the stretch. She powered A&M's offensive efforts with 27 kills. Afena Kozapala had a night as well. Just all-around great effort from Morrison's Aggies, and I know we'll probably see them back in the Sweet 16 continuously throughout the years, and I'm looking forward to them going even further. So awesome job. They finished the year 21-8. That's a heck of a record, and we are super proud of that program. So
absolutely. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate you stopping in. We'll hit a break here, and on the other side, we'll have Ryan Brauninger come into studio. We'll talk a little bit about this past weekend in the transfer portal and just where things might be headed from there. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner Jewelers. It's boots, it's chaps, it's cowboy hats here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Ryan Brauninger, TexAgs Recruiting.
It's Spurs and the TexAgs Christmas party tonight, which inevitably means while we're having a good time, celebrating a great year of work by everybody in our company, and Nick, and I'll even throw Callie in this group, I want to commend both of you for the jobs you've done. I've said it on whenever I'm hosting, and we had the signing day show, the rush hour show afterward to recap it. Like, the people behind the scenes here do not get enough credit, so I want to make sure that I'm giving you the proper credit. Nick, you're a rock star here. You do so much work that a lot of the public doesn't see. But inevitably, what's going to happen tonight at the Christmas party is that we're all going to be having a good time, and then the transfer portal is just going to go.
Oh, definitely, for
nuts.
sure. Yeah, something weird's going to happen. But that's why I got you.
It's been kind of a tradition. You know, before the transfer portal, we had like breaking news at 2 out of 3 Christmas parties. I can remember making phone calls about Bobby Brown during one Christmas party, and it was really cold outside. I can remember the Denver Harris kind of fiasco where there was an email sent out that included him in the signees list, and he had signed, but they were waiting on after the state championship game. That was a fiasco. There's been a lot of, it's not a tradition yet, but it's trending toward that way of every time there's a TexAgs Christmas party, something's going to happen while we're there.
Yeah. Well, let's hope we can hold off for like 3 hours tonight. Maybe a little bit. Just let us relax for a second. But Bronny, a productive week in the transfer portal. This past weekend gets the Aggies get 2 commitments. Lots of visitors. I want to preface everything we're saying here by, if you want a lot more detail on all of this stuff, make sure you go to texags.com, become a premium subscriber. Bronny's transfer portal threads doing numbers. We got an in-home visit coming out soon with a lot of deep dive info on,
if Naegeli will get on it back there, we'll get it out to the public. But she's kind of on my list this morning.
Yeah.
Watch me. I was coming into the front door, which the front door is always locked. It's 7:40. Yeah, it's dead bolted. And I've got 2 drinks in my hand and my backpack on. Kay walks down the stairs, sees me right there, and she just turns. She just walks off.
She just comes into the studio right now.
She just sees me and walks off. So she's kind of on my list today. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Mr. Scrooge.
Tell us a little bit about Humphrey and Hudson.
Yeah, there'll be 2 familiar names to A&M fans and especially recruiting fans. Julian Humphrey comes out of Clear Lake High School in Houston. Class of 2022, was a kid that the A&M really looked hard at but never made a big push for out of high school. He's kind of part of my running theory, like these kids that don't get pushes from A&M or Texas in the state, and they go out of state to programs like Alabama, LSU, or Georgia, and then they play a bunch there. Like, where's the miss eval from the in-state schools? It's just something that you try to work through because you never want to miss on a productive player from the city of Houston or the state of Texas and let him go out of state and wind up being a good player. But that's what Julian did. He was to Athens and plays in a lot of football games out there for the Bulldogs. And there was a last year about this time he went into the portal, and there was some real thought that A&M had the momentum to get him out of the portal then. Kirby convinced him to stay in Athens, remove himself from the back and plays for the Bulldogs this year. I think makes 9 starts, plays in 10 games, something like that. And then after the regular season, he enters the transfer portal again and ends up at A&M. Now, one of the things that we talk about on the in-home visit is, what does it mean for a guy that's going to leave a program that's playing in an SEC championship game and then the playoffs? Is that a major red flag? And it's something as an analyst that you have to look at and talk about. But what I can say is that if it was a major problem, if there was something underlying there that would draw question marks about culture fit, Mike Elko and his staff would not have taken the commitment. We know how much emphasis they're putting on, it's the 2 main questions that they're asking with kids out of the portal. Can you help us win football games? Are you going to be a problem with our culture? Like, they have to answer both of those, right? If you can help them win football games and you're not going to be a problem with what they're trying to build with the culture, then they're going to be a take. And so they definitely did their homework, I would imagine, on Julian Humphrey. Obviously, this staff, Coach Elko, was here as the defensive coordinator when Julian was coming out of high school, so he's got some familiarity with him. But you add to a cornerback room now that on paper going into the season looks like it's going to be a strength. And we're a long way from August of 2025, so there's a lot that can happen. But when you just kind of look at what the names are on the roster in that defensive back room, more specifically at corner, you're going, okay, on paper, this looks like a really, really good group. When you bring in a guy like Julian Humphrey, you have the returners on the current roster, and then the crop of newcomers out of the high school ranks that are so highly touted. You feel good about what that room looks like going forward. So big time win for Jordan Peterson, Mike Elko, Jay Bateman on that side of the ball. I'm supposed to talk to Julian later today, so hopefully I can kind of pick his brain on what went into some of his decisions and why he's back in Aggieland.
And then tell us a little bit about Micah Hudson, how that all went down. Everyone was kind of looking forward to that.
Yeah, so Micah has always been a really quiet kid. Keeps to himself, actually deleted his social medias, had to reactivate.
I respect that so much, by the way.
Yeah,
That's
he had
awesome.
to reactivate his Instagram just so he could post his commitment to A&M. So he's always been an off-the-grid, off-the-radar type of kid, even going back to high school. And, I think he had the knee injury, and it was maybe misdiagnosed coming out of high school. So he got there. He's a little bit behind the 8 ball. And I just never thought Micah was his full self. If you're a kid 18, 19 years old and you got questions about, am I in the right place? How is this injury affecting me? How is it handled? The whole thing. I just don't think you're going to be the best version of yourself. What I can say is we're just over 12 months removed from Micah Hudson being one of the best I've ever watched. I mean, we're talking Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, like that kind of level of player. And if you're watching on YouTube, this is a clip that I took at a Lake Belton game in his senior year, and it's all here. Like you watch this play, and it's everything that Micah Hudson can be. So if he's healthy, A, and B, if he's locked in, and I think he just needed a fresh start. Like he needed some new scenery, and if that's what he needed, then he's got a chance to impact the way Texas A&M throws the football from day one.
Yeah.
The best version of Micah Hudson is a lay-down NFL draft pick at wide receiver. That's the kind of talent that we're talking about. And I'm not trying to say anything about the current A&M roster. There's not many guys of his talent walking around anywhere, much less A&M. So they're going to continue to try to make moves at receiver in the portal. Maybe add 2 more names, Mario Craver, Nick Anderson, who's trending to LSU, but nothing's gone out on that front publicly. But just adding Micah Hudson to the fold, and now you're looking at a receiving core next year that's got Micah Hudson and Terry Bussey, 2 of the best overall athletes from the class of 2024 in the state of Texas, and then a seasoned vet like Noah Thomas, and you're going, okay, that's a really good place to start. I also thought it was really interesting and not more intriguing than interesting, the fact that Ashton Bethel-Rollman was the Offensive Scout Team Player of the Year at the Aggie Football Awards last night. We'd heard so much about how high they were on him going throughout the course of the season. For him to get that award kind of speaks to maybe what the coaching staff thinks about him and his future.
Absolutely. I'm going to plug that in-home visit one more time. If you want, again, more in-depth notes and stuff about how this past weekend went, a little bit of insight maybe on Jalen Braxton and what went down there.
We do go into that.
So make sure you check that out. Before I get you out of here, Bronny, really quick, Texas High School Football State Championship games, that starts on Wednesday, they believe?
Wednesday.
They start playing?
6-man Wednesday. I think there's one 11-man Wednesday, and it'll go through Saturday night. Really fun weekend at AT&T Stadium coming up. The prospects in terms of A&M, future Aggie players, Chase Sims, the signee, is going to play for Richmond Randall in the state championship game against South Oak Cliff, 5A Division II. There's not a lot of A&M offers, some underclass kids, 26. There's some 27s I'm super interested to get a look at. I saw a quarterback at Smithson Valley in that class that looked outstanding on Saturday, like a big-time future for that kid. His name's Ty Knutson. And then there's a 2027 quarterback at Woodville named Luke Babin who's starting to get a ton of attention. They'll play in the 3A Division II state title game against...
They're playing Gunter.
Gunter. And Gunter's obviously a power program in North Texas. So
how weird is it to not see Duncanville?
Yeah, that was the story of the semifinal round, is that Duncanville got beat, North Shore got beat, and then Summer Creek got beat. So it was a standout. You have to say the Austin area has really shown out in the in the 6A division with Austin Westlake upsetting North Shore, and then Austin Vandergriff, who's also got a really good-looking 2027 wide receiver with track times that I think nobody's really talking about. They go and they beat Summer Creek, who had just been rolling through everybody in Region 3. So 2 huge wins for the Austin area high school football scene.
Absolutely. Bronny, thank you again. Check out that in-home visit on TexAgs.com. Become a premium subscriber. On the other side, quick basketball thoughts with Luke Evangelist. All that and more here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Garner Schulers. Welcome back in. TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner Jewelers. We're here inside the Rollo Insurance Studio. Nick Savage filling in for David Nuno. He will be back tomorrow. And I have Luke Evangelist, TexAgs basketball analyst, pick 'em and rip 'em co-host, part-time social center host, whatever title you want to give him. He's in here to talk a little bit of Aggie basketball in the final segment of the 9 o'clock hour. So, Luke, big win over number 11 Purdue in a neutral site. It was a road game.
Yeah.
But you got a great article, 5 thoughts on the game. It's on TexAgs.com. Again, another chance for you to become a premium subscriber and get some awesome content from our team. But just give us your thoughts, your 5 thoughts on that game, kind of sum up that article.
Well, I don't have enough time to give you all 5 thoughts, but a couple of my thoughts were that this is the kind of win that totally changes the narrative about a team. Like before, bracketologists and like the most notable college basketball media personalities weren't really talking about A&M. There was a lot of Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. A&M had really solid wins, but you got to get a signature win to really kind of thrust yourself into the national eye, and that's exactly what A&M did. Guys like Goodman, John Fanta, even like John Rothstein, who tweets about A&M, but it's just like palpable Buzz Williams. He never really breaks down A&M. He was one of the reporters at the game. So getting guys who never really talk about A&M or never really feature A&M, they're now talking about A&M and being like, what a great win. This could be probably one of maybe 3 or 4 times that these analysts get to watch A&M throughout the course of the season. And a performance like that against Purdue is going to stick with them. The way that A&M won, the way that that defense played, which is now a top 5 defense in terms of defensive efficiency, that win is going to carry a lot of weight come March, not just in the selection committee's eyes, but in the media's eyes. And ultimately, we know that the media plays a role in like propping up teams and determining bracketology seeding. And I think a lot of bracketologists now have A&M as either a solidified 4 seed or like a 3 seed in some cases.
And I mentioned your tweet earlier during the Go Hour, but you tweeted out yesterday, the Aggies jumped up 6 spots in the net ranking after taking down Purdue. They're 26, and that's the highest net ranking in non-conference play under Buzz Williams. So just a really, really impressive resume. And you got 2 games that, again, you never want to say anything about, oh, it's a for sure win, but they're 2 winnable games for Aggie basketball before they get into SEC play. So they're looking pretty. What else? About a minute left here. So give us one more.
Yeah, I mean, we have to talk about Pharrell Payne. He was the story. The House of Pain, bringing the pain. He was... Pharrell was feral on Saturday, however you want to say it. I feel like I'm just clickbaiting for Matthew to get some headlines, but I feel like that was his best performance of the year. He had 15 against UCF, and since then he only reached double figures once. He actually has not missed a shot since Vegas. So against Texas Tech, Wake Forest, and now Purdue, he's 13 for 13. He's making his free throws, which has been a struggle for him, and A&M has been getting him involved. I feel like the last couple games, it was a lot more Solomon Washington and Henry Coleman in terms of front court production. But Pharrell Payne, like everything we imagined that he could be, we saw it on full display, 16-9 against probably the best team that we've played so far. So a lot of great things from Pharrell Payne, very encouraging. And we're going to need him to continue to play that well throughout conference play because the SEC is loaded with bigs as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Luke. That's Luke Evangelist, our basketball analyst. Again, he's got a great article, his 5 thoughts article. If you want to check that out, head over to TexAgs.com. We're going to hit a break here. 10 o'clock hour, we'll talk to Texas A&M head basketball coach Buzz Williams. Billy Liucci will join me in studio for that. And after that interview, we'll get about 3 segments with Billy. Talk transfer portal, maybe a little college football playoff because that's coming up this weekend. Lots of fun stuff to get into. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner Jewelers. Welcome back in. TexAgs Live, presented by David Garner Jewelers. We're here inside the Rollo Insurance Studio. Nick Savage filling in for David Nuno. Billy Liucci will join me in studio right now as we go out to the Boss Firearms Hotline and talk to Texas A&M head basketball coach Buzz Williams off a fresh big win over number 11 Purdue in Indianapolis. Coach Buzz, good morning, and just our initial thoughts on a huge win, a huge resume-building win this weekend.
Yes, sir. Good morning. We're thankful. Our guys have been in two unique environments over the last couple of weekends, and I think the maturity and resilience and all of the adjectives that you would use that would be required just to make it a game in those types of environments against those two teams. Our guys have been tremendous, and playing for one another or playing with one another, communicating at a really high level. Staff has been remarkable in the plan and the adjustments during the game. Our guys have executed at a high level, and so we're very thankful for the result.
Buzz, we've talked a lot this non-conference season about the scheduling and about how challenging it was. I'm watching these last couple games and probably all of them, but I'm just because they're kind of packaged together the last two weekends to play Texas Tech and Purdue. I vividly remember Texas Tech in a Final Four not too long ago. I remember or playing for the national championship, right? Same with Purdue just last season. What does it say about your program right now where it is? And I know it's a long season, but where they're at this point in the season, have you had a team that you know this much about as early before Christmas as this one? Because when I look at the schedule and the way these games have gone, and you and I talked about it last week, they're like all decided in the final, I think it's being generous to say 4 minutes. I mean, every one of these feels like an NCAA tournament team game, and I thought Saturday especially, just like every single possession. So do you know more about this team than previous teams before Christmas, or am I overthinking that?
No, I would say everything you said, Lucy, is spot on. We played Purdue basically in their event. It is a quad 1A game, and we do want to play those. But we did it to raise money for our collective.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important to say. We did the same thing. The reason we played Texas Tech in Fort Worth is it was for our collective.
Yeah.
And that has changed. The model has changed. That's what's changed scheduling. I think that because of the schedule that we played, we've had no choice but to have a rapid rate of growth.
Mm-hmm.
It forces you as a coach and it forces you as a player. You don't have a margin for an exaggeration because it's going to be a one possession game if it is even a game.
Yeah.
Because you're not gonna blow them out. And so I think that the 8 days in Vegas, last weekend in Fort Worth, this weekend in Indy, along with even starting on the road against a Big 12 opponent, I think that it just forces you to grow up. It forces you to handle the film room, the practice reps. It forces you to be mature in how you handle it. The wear and tear and the physicality of these games, it forces you to be consistent in the weight room, in the training room. The content that you have to be able to absorb relative to a scouting report. Hey, when you come in here now, we got to get right to it, and we got to get to the plan. and you have to execute these things or we have no shot. And it was a full room post game in Indy because, Wisconsin and Butler were playing immediately after. So there was, I don't know, it was one of the larger media rooms I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
And one of those guys, I don't know who he was, he asked about, hey, Coach, I saw you guys play in Vegas and this and that. I saw you guys play last week against Fort Worth. And he started kind of going through some of the numbers that you were mentioning. And I said, one thing I've learned in this is you have to understand the value of every single rep before you ever get to the game, because it begins before it begins.
Right.
And our guys have been really good in that regard. And I also think our staff has only spoken the truth on what's required, whether that's specific to us or specific to the opponent. And I think sometimes as a coach, you don't want to overcoach and get lost in the opponent and forget to coach your own team. And I think that's one thing that I've kind of tried to be ultra aware of and sensitive to with our staff. I know how good Purdue is, and I understand how good 3 and 4 is. But we got to be really good, or it's not going to be a game. So we can't give all of our energy and all of our emotion to the opponent, because in this growth, what's got to happen is we better be getting better too. Like if we're going to 8 Power 4 games out of the first 11, we better be getting better.
Yeah.
Yes, we're playing among the best teams in the country, but we better be getting better. At the time, our guys have become more and more comfortable, Liucci, in it's a tie ball game with 4 minutes to play.
Right.
Like that six of our 11 games, the score has been tied at the last media timeout. In 3 other games, it has been a 1-possession game at the last media timeout. That's 9 of the 11. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, so to say, in that environment. And we've just had so many reps of it. None of it's catching us off guard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, goodness gracious, this is going to be a long day at the office. This is going to be a tractor pull. This is going to be a fight. Like, whatever words you want to say. Yeah, and you know what? And when they call the last whistle at 4 minutes to play, it's going to be a tie ball game. So do all that's required to get to that point and know that it's still going to be tied with 4 minutes left. And then you still got to have the wherewithal to do what's required, discipline, execution, all of those things, to see if you can win about a possession. I mean, we won by 2 possessions Saturday in Indy. We won by 2 possessions last Sunday in Fort Worth. Like, that's what it's going to be.
those 2 winning by 2 possessions feels like winning by like 14 points in football at this point. It feels like a blowout. We all know it wasn't.
That's what I tell our kids. That's exactly right. Now the people watching it, they're like, "Oh, it's a close game." Man, if we win by 4 or 5 points, we're thinking like that. When we compete, practice, the differential between winning and losing determines the amount of running. So if it's a wide margin, you run a lot.
Yeah.
If it's a smaller margin, you run medium. If it's small, you run less. And so we give language to the different types of running. And the kids will argue in a good way with me.
Yeah.
Coach, that's a skull. No, Coach, that's a double skull. No, guys, we said that this was a double. This is a skull. And so, like, we're saying those things during the game. Coach, it's going to be a skull. You think it'll be a double skull? I don't know. What's the score? Like I asked them during time, what's the score? I can't see the scoreboard.
Yeah.
Coach, it's a skull. I'm like, gosh, dang, it's another skull.
Wait, what's a skull? What's a skull?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, skull. Yeah. This is probably more than the audience needs to have for the length of time for the interview. But skull skull is the lowest level of a win.
Okay.
Double skull means you beat them pretty good.
Yeah.
Triple skull means it wasn't even a game. And so, like, there's language to all of it. But,
I like it.
like, to your point, a 4-point game, we're like, oh, yeah, this is good. This is a skull.
Quote, unquote,
But
comfortable.
in real life, yeah, exactly. Just comfortable.
Well, I was watching, going through that whole game, and it just, I mean, it felt like, I don't want to use the word control. I mean, obviously Purdue had their runs, and it was never, it never felt like a blowout, but I just felt like maybe the most, I don't know, I want to say complete game, but watching Purdue play, like, that's a good basketball team. Like you mentioned 3 and 4, I'd say like 2, 3 and 4 and 5. I mean, like, they look like your normal non-Zach Edey Purdue team that you're used to seeing over the years. It's playing in the second weekend. Like, but I just felt like watching A&M was, you guys were just one slight step out in front where they were always kind of chasing it. And it was really impressive. And a big part of that, so the 2 transfers, obviously, and Wilcher hits that big 3 late, but Phelps and Payne, and I wanted to talk to you about Payne because did you see this, like, this performance? What do you have, 16 and 9 rebounds? Did you see this coming in practice? Had or in recent performances, had he been ramping up to that? Or was there something about the matchup that you really liked? Or is that just Henry went out getting hit in the head early and then all of a sudden you look up and he's making an impact?
Yeah, a little bit of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that Gochi has played very well.
Yeah.
And I would say that he would say the same thing to you.
Mm-hmm.
You could argue he may be the best prospect on our team. I'm not saying he's the best player.
Yeah.
He may be the best prospect. And I do not think that he has even come close to his ceiling at any point since he's been here. And I think he knows that. He understands that. He has been very diligent in his work. He's turned the ball over too much. He hasn't had a very good rebound rate on either end. He hasn't been bad, and he has shown glimpses of his talent. But you could argue that on Saturday, the tension that you're speaking of, like, man, this is going to be like when you're watching it or when you're there, you feel like, I think they're going to put this on ESPN Classic next year. Like, you could feel it. Like, man, this is an unbelievable college basketball game.
Yep.
Like, you never thought, it's going to get away from, we're going to get away from them. Like, they have the 8th best offense in the country. That we got a turkey every ATO of the second half. That was the game.
Really?
That was the game. Like that. And I was telling the kids in the first half, guys, it's going to be really hard to get 1 turkey. But if we don't come out of here with 6, we're not going to win because it's going to be a possession game. And whoever shoots the most balls and shoots the most free throws is going to win. But if we're going to play that possession game, if we don't start accumulating some turkeys, they're going to beat us because they're going to score more points than we are because they're going to shoot a better percentage. And I think that what Gochi did in that game was the separator.
Mm-hmm.
He was the difference because that's by far the highest point total he's had, by far the highest rebound total he's had. And Henry, when Henry got hit,
yep,
he's been so good for us.
Yeah.
And like he is not the prospect that Gochi is. But his consistency, his knowledge, his care, like he just represents everything, every possession the way you would want. And that's his toughness is why he's been starting and why he's been playing and has been playing more minutes than Gochi. And when he got hit, he always talks to me when he comes off, and I never talk to anybody. And he walks past me and he doesn't say anything. And I was like, huh. So about 4 minutes in real time later, I walked down there, and I looked at him. He was sitting down. I go, "Hey, man, you're hurt, ain't you?" He goes, "Coach, I'm going to be all right." I go, "You don't look right. I can just tell by looking in your eyes you don't look right." Because he is a very competitive kid. And I could tell he wasn't concussed, but you could tell he got hit in the very bottom part of his neck in the back. And I think it just kind of whiplashed him.
Yep.
And Gochi was in, obviously, at that time. And so when we subbed Henry back in, when Gochi came out, I said, "Hey, man, you think you can play good today? Because you haven't played good since you've been here. We're going to need you to play good." And, I thought you could argue, and I know they have really good players, you could argue he was the best forward in the game on Saturday. And his production changed our team. Now, can he do it every game? Don't know. But what he did on Saturday was critically important for the result.
Talking to Texas A&M head basketball coach Buzz Williams here on TexAgs Live. He's on the Boss Firearms Hotline. Coach, what does it say about the character of your team to basically play their quote-unquote, neutral site games in Indy and in Fort Worth? Y'all played at Dickies Arena, but y'all have they've basically been road games with the crowds that have been there. But so what does that say about your team and your team's character to fight through all that adversity when it feels like everybody in the building is against y'all and come out with the win on the other side?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said. And I think, transparently, some of it started in Vegas. When we played Oregon, there was a lot of green and gold in the gym. When we played the next day against Creighton, it was completely packed full of blue. And I was caught off guard even on Saturday when we played Rutgers, the red that was there. And I think we had not had any success at Dickies Arena. I think we had played there twice before in our tenure. That was the largest crowd in the history of Dickies Arena. And I would say it was 100% a road game. I know numerically it'll count as a neutral game. And when we got home on Sunday night, we were off Monday, and I told the kids on Tuesday, I said, "Hey, guys, I think it's going to work out fine because what we just experienced on Sunday is a precursor to what we're going to see on Saturday. Saturday will be an NBA arena. Saturday, they'll sell 6,000 or 7,000 more tickets. And Saturday, it'll be 99% capacity for Purdue." So what we did in Fort Worth was great preparation relative to the ambiance and the environment of what's coming on Saturday. And truthfully, that's what it was. Unbelievable facility. Kids always want to play in an NBA arena. That's as they should. That's kind of a cool thing. And it was, I don't know, maybe there was 150 people that was cheering for Texas A&M. If you remove the relatives that were in the crowd, it was an unbelievable environment, and it counts as neutral, but it was for sure a road game.
Two things before we go. Number one, how cool was it to have be there and have Q there? We all saw the video in the locker room.
One of the cooler things that's happened since we've been here. I told him we took a picture after the game, after the locker room, and I'm ultra close with him. I still talk to his mom all the time. Really, really close. Corey's close with Keisha. Corey's close with Q. My son talked to Q all the time. He was here with us from the beginning and stayed with us through COVID and used his COVID year to stay. And you look at how he carried that team the last 15, 18 games of his career here, and speaks for itself. But I told him after the game, I said, "Hey, man, allowing me the relationship I have with you and coach you the way I coached you. You know, all them old kids in that locker room, you know, they were young. You were the old guy, and I was coaching you the way I did. And we were having the relationship we had. They were the young kids.
Yeah.
Now in that locker room, those young kids are now the old kids. And I said, that's a legacy win, man. That we won because of what you did for us and how you allowed your belief in what we did and what we have built. That you won that game. Because if you don't handle that, and those young kids, Wade, Henry, Mo, they don't get to see you as the example when you were old. They don't see that when they're young. They're probably not even here. But we're for sure not winning this game. And he was like, Coach, that's real talk. I never thought of it like that. I go, yeah, man, that's legacy. It's not what you give somebody, it's what you leave in somebody. That's what you left in them kids, man. They're not kids now, but they were kids when you were here. Now they're paying it forward. Now there's some young guys. I said, Solomon wasn't on the team when you were here. I said, but Solomon knows who you are, but he doesn't know what was going on when you were here, when it was COVID and we didn't play a game in February. Like he doesn't know that.
Yeah.
And so like it was very special. Yes, very special.
Coach, thank you for joining us. Good luck this week, and we'll talk to you next week.
Hey, Buzz, you know what my favorite in-game battle is watching the Aggies play?
Tell me.
You versus the in-game interview. How quickly you're trying to get out, but also say a lot, but condense it.
I know. My word usage is, even every week when I talk to you, my word usage, I'm just too over-wordy too often.
I am too. I get it.
I'm so bad after a game. Like I should be like all these other coaches and just let the assistant do it because I'm so bankrupt emotionally after a game, and I'm just paranoid. Buzz, don't say anything that you'll regret. Don't say anything that creates a false narrative.
Right.
And I'm so emotionally spent after a game. It's just like, I would do better if the narrative was, oh yeah, Buzz never shows up for post game. Like that's better.
You're okay with that, yeah. Yeah,
exactly.
No, just knowing you, it cracks me up watching it. Just knowing you like I do, it cracks me up watching it because I know what you're going through.
And I'm like, Coach Wright standing there, Coach Raff standing there. They've literally called and texted me 3 times since the game, and they're coaches, and I'm good with them, and I love them, and I adore them. And then here's John Rothstein, and I'm looking right at Coach Wright and Coach Raff, and they're laughing at me. And I'm like, hurry up. Say whatever you want to say. Let me get out of here. Talk to 4. Just talk to 4. Like, you ain't got to talk to me.
Coach, thank you again.
And 4 knows me. And, yeah. Thank you, man.
Yes, sir.
Love it, Buzz. Thanks.
Texas A&M head basketball coach Buzz Williams there on the Boss Firearms Hotline. We'll hit a break, and on the other side, we'll get into all sorts of here in studio. You're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner Schulers. Welcome back in. TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner Jewelers. We're here inside the Rollo Insurance Studio. Nick Savage filling in for David Nuno. Billy Liucci will join me in studio shortly to talk all things transfer portal, Aggie hoops. Apparently, we're going to talk a little bit about daylight savings time. Resident New Yorker Callie Garner over there. So, any texts to get to, Callie?
We
over
have
at the
one.
Angry Elephant News and Social
We'll
Center.
keep it on the basketball track. We have a message from Jesse in Kentucky, who was actually at the game on Saturday. He said, as expected, it got pretty loud every time Purdue went on a run, and it was so satisfying to hear the crowd go quiet when the Aggies responded. Purdue fans definitely were frustrated by the Aggie defense.
Nice job, Jesse. Driving. How long is that drive from Kentucky to Indianapolis?
I feel like maybe it's closer than
Probably, I think.
I would expect.
You're a lot more well-traveled than I am, so that's why I asked.
just because I went to New York.
Well,
means that-
no, but you've been
okay.
more places than New York, haven't you?
Yeah, I have.
I've been out of the country once in my life, and that was in middle school, so I haven't left the good old US of A in a really long time. I went to Florida for my honeymoon. That's the last time I
go.
left Texas this year.
Pretty same
no.
climate.
I was about to say we went to SEC Media Days, but that was last year. It was in Dallas.
Yeah, the Dallas. This says it's 3 hours and 11 minutes.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
But that's just to a city in Kentucky. He could live in
Who knows?
Louisville or where do you live, Jesse? Let us know.
We'll dox you here. No, we won't. We don't do that. Just kidding. Any other messages on the chats? Anything catch
We have
your
a
eye?
text from David in Houston, and he's going back to when y'all were talking about, I'm assuming, Notre Dame and their ranked wins. And he just says rankings at the time they played don't matter. What are they ranked now? Which is a fair assumption.
I get that argument, but my whole deal with that is like when we're talking about resumes, especially when it comes to like picking teams, at-large teams for the college football playoff and whatnot. Well, what do they look at? They look at their wins. Most likely their wins versus ranked opponents. That goes involved. Billy Liucci joining us in studio. Billy, read that again so Billy can kind of chew on it and just give his take on that.
Yeah, earlier this morning, we were discussing Notre Dame's schedule and their wins over ranked teams that were ranked at the time. And I believe Texas has a few of those too. But he just says rankings at the time they played don't matter. What are they ranked now? It just goes for any team.
I'm always torn on that. That's always tough. Because we're sitting here, and when the final book is written on Elko's first season, it included wins over 2 top 10 teams. And if you're going to do that, then you have to say they lost in November to 2 unranked teams. Don't give me this, well, South Carolina was really good, and they were, and they are. They probably, if they've not gotten robbed against LSU, they're in the playoff. They were that good this year. But you can't do both. So, yeah, I mean, Texas has some ranked wins. My thing with Texas, my whole thing all year, and look, 2 of A&M, 3 of A&M's losses look a lot, not better, but I mean, they're like, 3 of your 4 losses came to 2 playoff teams and a South Carolina team that probably should be in the playoff. It doesn't make me feel any better, but with Texas, my big issue was if they had lost to A&M, which they did not, so this doesn't matter. And it didn't matter with what happened a week earlier when Ole Miss lost, when Alabama lost. But if Texas had, this is what I was trying to say all along, they had not been tested. It's not about, OU was ranked or Vandy was ranked. You're not talking about like the season post-mortem, like, hey, they did this, these are the positives, these are the negatives. You're trying to talk about who belongs in the playoff and who belonged in number 2 ranking. Because by being 2 or 3, they were set up to not drop out. My thing is, I felt like they should have dropped out of the playoff field altogether, no matter how pretty they looked. Had they lost to, not even Arkansas, because if they had lost to Arkansas late and then beat a ranked A&M team, it would have given them something to win that game on the road. lost to A&M to be 10-2, and Bama, at the time I was making the argument, Bama and Ole Miss and Tennessee and Georgia all finished 10-2. Not to mention if they lost to the Aggies, at that time. Remember, this was pre that weekend.
Yeah.
Where A&M lost too. So if there's 10-2 A&M that beat Texas, 10-2 Bama, 10-2 Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Georgia that beat Texas. All 5 of those teams should have been in the playoff ahead of Texas, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that point was null and void when Bama lost, when Ole Miss lost, when A&M lost to Auburn even.
Yep.
And when those 3 things happened, then it doesn't matter anymore. And then Texas gets credit because that list of teams that are in contention that lost games they shouldn't have, Aggies, Tide, Rebels, when that list grew and grew, Tennessee, at the time they were the only ones. When that list grew to that point, the argument was totally different. So if you go back and listen, I completely came off of that weekend. But going into the next to last week of the season, so yeah, I do think it works both ways. But at the end of the season, if you're trying to grade and evaluate, look, if you want to take those 2 top 10 wins by A&M at the time, and they were, and then you say they lost to 2 unranked teams, it really doesn't matter because either you're saying you're taking away from their top 10 wins a little bit and saying, well, they really weren't top 10, but then you're also going, well, 3 or 4 losses came to teams that really top 12, so it doesn't really matter. To me, it's just like, how does it feel that day, unless you're talking about resume. But now in the resume thing, this year is unique because who really has done anything special? Oregon, I guess, because they're undefeated. But, what if I'll give Oregon credit. Look, they beat Boise. They beat Ohio State, both on last-second wins, and then they beat Penn State. So Oregon's probably the only team that's not subject to that fine-tooth comb.
Absolutely. We'll hit a break here on the other side. A little bit more talk with Billy Liucci in studio. This is TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner Jewelers. Welcome back in, TexAgs Live. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. We're presented by David Gardner Schulers. Billy Liucci is with us here in studio. Billy?
We got a Christmas party tonight. Where's it at?
Hush and Whisper Distillery.
Proud sponsor. We're going to have to deal with Burbinger. Burbinger.
I like that one the best.
So, instead of Brauninger, I've been calling him lately Eloninger because he just kind of knows everything about everything per him. And get ready tonight because about 4 months ago, he decided he was a bourbon expert. And we're walking into, Hush and Whisper. So it's going to be a real problem for anybody that gets within earshot of them. So just
keep that in mind.
Keep that in mind, TexAgs. And by the way, I hear you're anti-daylight savings time.
Yeah.
And Trump? He is too.
Yeah.
And I that's one thing I do not approve of. I like daylight savings.
I need it. It needs to get dark at 7. I don't like it at dark at 5. The sun should not be setting at 4:30.
I feel like, Callie, you were just in New York where it really does get dark at about 4:30 this time of year. How'd you manage? It looks like you survived.
Yeah, it was one of those. I mean,
you see any?
It'd be different if I lived there, but
you see any drones up there?
No, I didn't. I feel like I got out of there before, but they might be coming.
Hey, I'm not kidding. I probably flying out of New York would have definitely been looking out the window.
Oh yeah,
to look for drones. Were you by a window seat?
I was, but I feel like if they're not going to fly them close to the airport because doesn't that like interfere with like air traffic
control? It's the government. They can do whatever they want.
they can do
They can fly them wherever they want.
So here's daylight savings to me. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. The reason I like it breaks up the monotony. I don't need it to get dark at the exact same time every day. I like all of a sudden to wake up and go, damn, why is it bright through my window at 6 a.m.? Yeah, it takes a few days to adjust. I like it to get dark earlier in the season. You know why? That reminds me of football season. I think of late season college football at Kyle Field. I think of the NFL. I think of the 2:30 kick, and it's going to get dark at night. I like it, and it makes me think of winter. Early dark, winter. I get it, man. And, if that is enough to depress you, then we've just gone too far down this road. We're not in freaking Alaska where it's like 6 months of night. Like, it just tells me we've gone too soft on the radio, how it contributes to depression and all. Like, come on now.
I haven't dove that deep.
Oh my God.
Into it.
What do you think's wrong with you? Could it have been something that happened in your childhood? Could it have been, did you go a traumatic event? Were you, real things like were you, did you have to go serve in war? And what is it that's, did you lose a loved? What is it? Well, honestly, it's this damn daylight savings. It's been getting dark an hour earlier and getting light so early, it's completely messing me up, and I need to be put on drugs. Come on.
Let me get this in real quick, Billy, before we talk a little.
Sorry if I offended any of you daylight savings truthers or haters.
As a reminder, the final segment of the show is brought to you by Double Dave's. That's at 10:50, but right now, caller number 12 at 979-693-1150 will hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or one large topping pizza from Double Dave's, serving Aggieland since 1984. Double Dave's Pizza, serving up your favorite pizza and world-famous pepperoni rolls with reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click doubledave.com. Are on their way. As a reminder, they are not open on Mondays. Billy, quick portal note, then we got to hit another break, and then maybe if you want to go a little long
Yeah, we'll
today.
go a little long today. Just because, here's the beauty of this. We can ramble, and we can just rip good segments from Louie and do them for everybody that's actually subscribed to TexAgs and likes to listen. What you want to ask me?
Just portal thoughts, I guess, over the two. I'll give you the two
Jack
commits.
Pyburn just, as we're
LSU.
talking, went to LSU, so that's a loss. That's a guy A&M wanted. You had, Bateman on staff from Florida, so that looked like a very realistic get. You play. You hate that. They're very confident right now in Nick Anderson. That's a receiver you really wanted. If he goes to a place you play, you hate that double. And that was a real position of need, both those D-line and receivers. So I will say what I said yesterday because I'm burying the lead here, which is Micah Hudson and Julian Humphrey, which I want to talk about those two guys at length here in a minute.
Yep.
Those are big gets, and they are potentially really big gets. And we'll talk about why and what has to happen for them to be really big gets. But this is a football game. Like I said, this portal thing, you are, like I said the other day, okay, maybe you're down 10-3 in the first quarter, okay? And Micah Hudson, you went down and you scored and you felt better about it. And then, but what about Nick Anderson and Jack Piper? And boom, boom, you fall behind again. It's still in the first half of this ball game. It is. We're not in the second half yet. I'm not going to talk about the second portal window. There might be some stuff there. There might not. You just don't know. So I don't want to sit here and play this game of like, well, let's not evaluate until the end of the second window. And we will reevaluate, but there is a very specific break that you do evaluate how you did in a very important portal season, and that is the end of the first portal window. We are not, time-wise, it's getting, you're like, what are you, 10, not even 10 days in, you're 8 days in?
Yeah.
Wait until the end of this first portal window and see. A really good corner just went in today from Arizona that probably most thought would be going to the NFL this year. A highly rated defensive front seven guy from Auburn just went in. You're going to see these every single day. And as the playoffs go on, you're going to see guys on these playoff teams as they get eliminated starting this weekend going to the portal. A couple of which I know from just the let's say, agent side of things, I know are already eyeballing A&M. Pretty good receiver from Miami winning. So you have to just wait and see and judge. But it also at the same time, you can be disappointed that you lose someone that A&M wanted, but also make sure you know them. So there's no reason to hand-wring over Uman Mielen, who went to Ole Miss, whose brother played and could come back there if he wanted to. There's no reason to hand-wring over that guy to the extent that folks did when he doesn't even meet with Mike Elko to cap off his visit. I think he was like a down-the-well fallback option for the Aggies, maybe not so much for Ole Miss. If you hand-wring, if you're going to do that, nobody cared when they lost the DN from Nebraska to LSU that I think they would have much rather had over Princewell. Okay? So I think that's just where you have to kind of understand and really be following this, and it's our job to kind of make people aware of that. So do as best you can, kind of say, look, here's the roadmap. It's also difficult you don't want to sit there and rate these guys by number and have Lane Kiffin sending them going. Like I always say, it's not our job to promote it. It's certainly not our job to hurt it. So it's a fine line. And look, I think that I don't like, they don't have, as we're talking, they have not, Nick Anderson has not announced yet. Could be. But I would not like the fact that LSU got 3 guys you wanted. The Ole Miss thing with Braxton this weekend, the cornerback, that was a little shady enough, sneaky enough to me that you kind of go, you probably dodged a bullet there.
Yeah.
Good player, but then you went and got Humphrey. So are we approaching your break?
Yes.
Let's do your break, and I'll come back, and I want to talk Micah Hudson, Humphrey, and what I think's ahead for the Aggies.
Sweet. We'll do that and a bunch more. Keep it right here. This is TexAgs Live, presented by David Garner Schulers. Welcome back in, TexAgs Live, final segment of the program. You're about to hear Louis Bellina on the other side of about 10 seconds. You'll hear Louis Bellina on KZNE. If you're watching on YouTube and TexAgs.com, just keep it right here. Again, on KZNE, thank you for watching. Billy, we are done on KZNE, so now we're just on TexAgs and YouTube. I wanted to talk about
Calzada in the portal.
Yeah.
I just
Wow.
can't believe that he's
still playing,
still going.
Yeah,
he's been what, A&M, Auburn, Incarnate Word, and now one more. And I think he should. He had an incredible season there. Was he not the conference player of the year?
Something like that. But anyways.
No, I think Zach. He had that one moment at A&M. Started a few big games for the Aggies. He beat Zach had 2 top 15 wins that season. Borderline top 10. I think Auburn came in here at number 11. I think, look, nothing at Auburn to speak of, and then reinvented himself at Incarnate Word all the way down to the cornrows he had apparently after this game this past weekend. If you really want to see something cool, go watch. I'm joking about the hair because everybody makes fun of my hair, so I feel like I deserve to be able to. But go watch his interview after the Incarnate Word game. Pretty teary and really appreciative. And now going into the portal, which there's some kind of irony there, and that shows you this is college football now. Best coach I've ever played with. Oh, and now 2 days later I'm leaving. But he should. And I don't blame him because he has come so far as a quarterback under that Incarnate Word staff that I'm sure they're giving him their blessing and saying, hey, go be great, young man.
Yeah.
And that's today's college football. There is some where I kind of feel two types of ways about it, but he's got one more shot to go up to a higher level of ball and show what he's got for the NFL because he wants to make a living throwing the football and being a quarterback, and he's not. That is not. You look around the NFL and you look at these backup and third string quarterbacks and some guys that have worked their way into even being starters over time. It's not an impossible dream. So he should. I mean, I best of luck to Zach, and he should go do that. Micah Hudson and Julian Humphrey, as Bronny says. Julian. Okay, so we talked about Braxton and not landing him and him going to Ole Miss, SEC starting corner that they were very high on. Humphrey is another SEC starting corner that they've been very high on for a long time. Okay, a long time. He went into the portal or announced he was, or whatever it was, a year ago. Stayed at Georgia. Had he come out, he would have been quite possibly the, just telling you right now, he would have been the number one priority for A&M at cornerback coming out a season ago. There are a couple of interesting things happening with these two commits, Humphrey and Micah Hudson. You got fan bases out of Athens and out of Lubbock downplaying it. And then you got the losers, and the ones I'm talking about are acting like losers in Austin. You got the losers in Austin, the ones that are saying this is just, both these guys are sloppy seconds. They're not any good. A&M's just getting leftovers. I get Georgia fans trying to say it. I get Lubbock fans trying to say it because that's what all fan bases do. I've seen A&M fan base do the same thing to some degree. If I don't think the guy's that big a loss, I'll allude to that myself in instances. This one's funny to me. Both of these are funny to me because whereas I do think you go, okay, well, why are they, why did Humphrey leave Georgia before this playoff run? Why was Hudson a 5-star at Texas Tech, a place that's in the Big 12 when he could have gone anywhere in the country, and why was he not productive and play a ton there? There's a lot of reasons. I'm sure Bronny's talked about him. I've talked about him. There was an injury. I don't think he ever wanted to be there, quite frankly. I don't know if that affected him, but I know he is a 5-star talent. that is undeniable. So what you could have is 2 5-stars now in that class with Micah Hudson and Terry Bussey, and then you just sign one in Jerome Miles.
Yep.
Okay, so that's like if Holman Wiggins coaches these guys up like that, that's the talent you've got. Okay, so that you start to look at the youth at receiver in this program and go, okay. Now you're also talking about impact for this year. And I had said something like Micah Hudson will have, he'll have to prove it here. And some people were on me like, Troy, have you seen our receivers? If he has to prove it, you don't know ball. Like, no, like the Tech fans are salty, but there's truth in that. Like he has to come down here and prove that he's ready to be that 5-star caliber player. Yep. He is that 5-star caliber athlete. I think I just knowing enough about him and what these guys know about him from covering him, his makeup is what you want it to be. It is. It's not, they've had, I wouldn't say this is a Christian Kirk, but I also wouldn't say this is a Damon Demas, Chris Marshall. It's a guy that is young and he's getting a second chance, and he is an incredibly talented playmaker. Incredible. NFL first-round talent, and he's not been a guy that's gotten in any kind of trouble.
Yep.
I think this is a big-time win. And if he didn't come to A&M, I would ask a lot of these fan bases, where the hell do you think he would have gone? Because he'd be somewhere really good.
Yep.
He'd be in Baton Rouge. He might have found, I know they'll deny it. He might have found his way to Austin. He might have found his way to Ohio State. You just don't know. It would have been somewhere really, really good. I'm telling you, because you can't watch him. And that combination of size, speed, athleticism, spatial awareness, going up and getting the football and just finding the ball, like you don't find that very often. And A&M needs that. And they could have really used that this year. So, yeah, that's a massive, it's a big-time get with the potential to be a game changer, but that's not guaranteed. Okay, so they didn't go and get, like say there's Micah Hudson and Cam Coleman, right? Micah was rated right up there with Cam Coleman. You saw what Cam Coleman did this year in a program that had a bad season. So I think with Micah Hudson, the upside is absolutely there, and that's why you take him. Because if Wiggins and him can connect, he's gonna have an opportunity. This is a position where they needed portal help. He's got a great chance to come in and start. And if that is motivation enough to get the best out of him, I think you're going to look back at some of these tweets and some of these things people elsewhere are saying and go, yeah, that was absolutely sour grapes. And I'll say the same thing about Humphrey. Dude started 10 games at Georgia this year.
Yeah.
I know it's not like their defense has not been like previous Georgia defenses. It was still an elite defense, and he started 10 games. And a lot of the people commenting, I notice, are Longhorns.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying, well, Ryan Davis did him in. Ryan Williams. Okay, Ryan Williams. Maybe one of the greatest games by a receiver that we've seen in years that night at Alabama. I watched the Texas-Georgia game in Austin, and I saw a certain guy, I believe he was number 12, right? And that what number he was wearing? Why don't you look that up? I believe it was. But I saw a certain, because I don't want to say a number 12 and it was not him. But Humphrey made a lot.
He's number 12.
He made a lot of plays in that Texas game. Just go watch his highlight video alone, and you see a handful of high-level coverage plays and tackles against the Longhorns in Austin in a game that his team won. So, yeah. He didn't finish the season as a starter. He's at Georgia, okay? So it's up to these coaches. Humphrey has put a lot of good football on tape. He is going to be an NFL draft pick. That's a hell of a pickup. And you look at that room now, and you go, at corner, you bring back Willie and Ricks, and you're going to get Tyreek Chappelle back, and you throw in Humphrey, and you've got a really nice freshman class, and you've got a couple other veterans that have played. That cornerback position and the talent there, I don't know who's going to get drafted where, who's going to do what, but Humphrey, Lee, Ricks, just Chappelle, just off talent, like how those are all NFL talent.
That's crazy how fast that room flipped
Now they
in
have
one
to
year.
play like it,
Yeah,
right? And it is, but yeah, they've done a tremendous job at that position. And look, it takes a minute. People, I was reading people talk about Ricks the other day. I said that last year was Des Ricks' first year of playing football. He essentially redshirted Alabama, and he graduated a year early. Okay, Des Ricks is supremely talented. Julian Humphrey is a gifted. The track times he was putting up as a senior in high school out of the Houston area, like these guys are like, I think maybe like sub 10.4 if I'm not mistaken. He can really run. And then we saw Will Lee and his coverage ability this year, and then some of these guys that they signed out of high school. Like this room looks terrific. And Chappelle, losing Tyreek Chappelle was probably the second biggest injury A&M suffered this year. Maybe third, because when you lost Le'Veon, had you had Reuben, you don't feel that hit nearly as much as you did. But it was one of the three biggest, setbacks A&M had injury-wise this season, because Chappelle was going to be and will be a big part of that defense. He was really cooking there at that nickel spot. There's a big step back without him. So what they're doing at corner is pretty significant. And again, if you're going to take these 5-star caliber athlete, like normally you want the guys like a Julian Humphrey. Okay, he started however many games in Athens, Georgia for Kirby Smart. Okay, but if you're going to take some of these guys, like you added a 5-star, one of the very best in the country in Des Ricks. You did the same thing a year later with Micah Hudson. Get these guys early and just get them in a new environment and with a ton of football to be played. So I'd like, to me, Des Ricks, it's like, okay, what kind of jump can that guy make from throughout this offseason from last year to this year? And there's a massive room for him to take a leap, having just finished. And he had some ups and downs this year, but certainly some ups. And I feel like sometimes we sit here and try to nitpick, and you focus on the downs. Like, no, that dude, for playing his first year of college football in the SEC, had some real high moments. So Humphrey upgrades that room in a big, big way, and it was a need. Now, what are the other needs? You need, I think, one more tight end. I think if you can go get the guy from Purdue, I think it's going to be tough. Oregon's made a big run. Ohio State's in there. I think Michigan. I think Texas. But tight end, a second tight end, wide receivers still. And again, like, it doesn't end with Nick Anderson. If he goes to LSU, I really, really want to see A&M land him. But it doesn't end there. And you do still I think you absolutely need a big-time guy at that position that's coming in, like, straight up proven. Micah could end up being the best one, but I think it's such a need that you need a straight up proven guy, or it's not a success during this portal. And those are guys like Concepcion. Singleton's not really looking at you from Georgia Tech. He's that guy.
Carver.
Well, Carver's an in-between. Carver's semi-proven, but he is something that the Aggies really need and could use in terms of that speed. I'd love to see that. I would love, I'm telling you, it won't get as much hype as it should. I would love to see them land Carver to pair with Hudson, Noah, Bussey, Jerome Miles. And then you're really, this position's starting to look really, really fun.
Yeah.
Really fun with these weapons. But yeah, I still think a proven P4 guy that's put up big time numbers, whether it's Concepcion, whether it's a Nick Anderson like last year, Lambert Smith. We saw a few weeks ago how much A&M could have used that. So, yeah, I think getting one of those guys is still a need as well. So it doesn't have to be a specific guy. It doesn't have to be, but it needs to be. They need to fit that criteria, in my opinion. And then The rest of it, Nick, is probably defensive line. And you hated to see Pyburn go, and you want to go back up to Purdue and get, a D lineman like Helt, who I think fits the profile, is a little bit different than what you have at D end right now. That would be, in my opinion, a big one. But you're getting Ohio State in there, and Michigan, and these, it's. But at the end of the day, you just have to get some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And every one of them that you recruit, you should be having to fight big-time teams. And you should be having to tap into your NIL and figuring it out and making it work. And Elko knows that, and he's going to do that. But these are big, tough battles. But there's him. You've got interior guys from Arkansas and Wisconsin, one of whom's on campus right now. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's a big-time need, Nick, is to get some girth inside, some real. All right, Richard, grow up. Grow up, weird beard. But yeah, you need to have some girth at defensive tackle, the football position, and you need to get, they need that. But yeah, I felt like that was lacking this year. You didn't have the wide-bodied 320-pound guy to, stuff the running game, and they need some of that. And I think both of those guys would fit the bill with some height to them too. One's 6'4", the other one's like 6'6". I didn't think I thought they lack a little length. And with Hicks and Regis being the two guys that are going to be your primary dudes, they don't possess a lot of that length either. So you need that. And then at end, obviously you need more. And I don't know, as we're sitting here, I don't think Kelby Collins has chosen Alabama yet, but that's another guy that Spencer and Bateman had at Florida, and he's a pro. So they've got to. It doesn't matter that it's not, Jamari who's now at LSU. It doesn't matter that it's not him. It doesn't matter if it's not Helt or Collins or who, but it's got to be dudes that maybe emerge later or that you go in on that you really believe can play and they're at the top. You can't be going down to your third options and try to convince yourself that that's the best you could have done and that was the big win. You got to work with what you work with. But again, though, it doesn't, so I'm trying to tell people, it doesn't have to be the first name that you hear or the first couple guys that you see them target. So, but yeah, there's got to be a sense of urgency at wide receiver and D-line in particular, because those are significant need areas in my opinion. And I'm going to be interested to see where it goes. Getting Micah Hudson was a ridiculously good start for the Aggies. And like I said, if he doesn't come to A&M, there would have been another big-time fan base celebrating it. And they don't give a damn how much or little he played in Lubbock in his first year out of high school. Yeah. They don't care.
Battling an injury.
I just look, and they'll downplay that. That's what fan base is. And the quote unquote experts that, we know more than you because that's what they do. This was an addition they needed and they got it. And I think he'll have a day one impact actually, because I think it's going to be a 5-star talent with something to prove.
Yep. Is that it, Billy?
That's it for now.
All right. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Nuno back in the host chair tomorrow. We'll see you mañana, as he says.